Chapter 630. The smoke dissipated and the murderous aura diminished. However, the remnant of the galaxy that Sumo had captured was still spreading. It was actually a kind of assimilation. Originally, there were only remnants of the galaxy, but now many planets had begun to change. In fact, it was hard to say who had assimilated whom. However, Sumo could control that power. The galaxy power spread across Dongi planet region. Sumo stood on the demonic ship and reached out toward the array that had just appeared. The Purple Demon Palace was originally a few worlds away. However, Sumo had grabbed it and brought it to the edge of the Pure Land. Even Bushinkong was shocked by that scene. It should be noted that the Purple Demon Palace was something that Bu Miaotian had painstakingly built. It wasn't just a palace, but a venerable level Dharma treasure. The Pure Land of today was no longer what it used to be. Otherwise, the Purple Demon Palace would have definitely shattered the Pure Land. The Purple Demon Palace stopped in the interstellar void. Although the radiance of the Purple Demon Palace was extremely dim, its aura still caused people to feel fear. The pressure it exuded was far greater than that of northern Chill City. Bushinkong, I give this Purple Demon Palace to you. If Bu Miaotian returns one day, he will definitely be able to break the seal. Sumo then waved her hand. Whoosh! The majestic Purple Demon Palace shrank to the size of a palm and slowly flew toward Bushinkong. Thank you, Demon King. Bushinkong bowed. Then, he reached out and the Purple Demon Palace landed in his palm. At that moment, Bushinkong couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Although Bu Wuhui had been sealed, as long as she wasn't dead, he would be able to answer to Bu Miaotian. Bushinkong, I want Dongi Planet region to become the Pure Land of the galaxy. Sumo looked at Bu Miaotian. Demon King, don't worry. I will keep my word. I will immediately notify the many small worlds in Dongi Planet region that the Demon King will be the master of Dongi from today onward. Tomorrow, all the puppet kings in Dongi Planet region will come here to pay their respects to the Demon King. King of Shame. Sumo frowned. Are there no true cultivators in the East E-world? Hee. When Bushinkong heard Sumo's words, he could not help but shake his head and laugh bitterly. I won't hide it from the Demon King. Most of the so-called cultivators in the entire Dongi galaxy are just puppet, and the pure Earth planet has always been an anomaly. Naturally, there should still be some real cultivators in Purple Fiend Palace. However, all of them have been sealed inside. The true cultivators of Dongi world are almost all concentrated in the Pure Land world. Oh! Sumo couldn't help but frown. Why is it like this? Because the corpse-less faction believes in puppets more. We prefer to use puppets to govern this world. Bushinkong laughed self-deprecatingly. What I'm asking is, why is the Pure Land of Pure Land an anomaly? Sumo said. I'm afraid that only the Ancestral Master can answer this question. Bu Wuhui shook his head. Because the Pure Land was left behind by the Ancestral Master. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been named the Pure Land. Strictly speaking, it is directly under the jurisdiction of the Ancestral Master. Tianfu City is also the first palace of the Ancestral Master. However, the Ancestral Master disappeared mysteriously, and we don't know where he went. Everything here is controlled by Junior Marshal Sister. Is there no news of Bu Miaotian? Yes. Bushinkong nodded. There has been no news of the Ancestral Master for tens of thousands of years. We don't know where he went. However, we are sure that he is still alive. Back then, he had always been looking for something that belonged to the three realms. What is it? Sumo asked. I'm not sure. Yes. Sumo nodded with a smile. What Bushinkong had said was not too different from what Yi Wuhui had said. Do you know Yi Wuhui? Sumo asked again. Of course. Bushinkong let out a long sigh. She is also my junior martial sister. What is the relationship between her and Bu Wuhui? Sumo asked. Sisters. Bushinkong shook its head. Actually, I don't know either. I can only say that I know the most primitive relationship between them. What do you mean? Sumo said. At this moment, Yi Kanxing was also looking forward to Bu Shinkong's answer. He looked at Bu Shinkong in disbelief. Actually, I appeared after them. Although Bu Xiyun and I are their senior martial brother in name, we are actually puppets created by the ancestral master in the Yizong world. In my transplanted memories, they are both junior martial sisters. Bu Shinkong paused. When I appeared, they already existed. They are a pair of twin sisters. But, Bu Shinkong hesitated. But what? Yi Kanxing asked first. But Bu Xiyun once told me that Bu Wuhui is a divine puppet. So, this is a very interesting thing. Bu Xiyun and I are actually different from each other. I didn't understand this until I awakened. Bu Xiyun and I are definitely the divine puppets. And among them, who is the divine puppet has always been a mystery. Bu Shinkong said, the two junior martial sisters are originally the same. Moreover, the divine puppet will be transplanted with the same memories as the original body by the ancestral master. So, besides the ancestral master and the original body, almost no one can really tell them apart. Moreover, the divine puppet doesn't even know that it is a divine puppet. However, as time passed, they changed more and more. This kind of change is not in appearance, nor is it in realm, but in character. Bu Wuhui is eccentric, paranoid, and arrogant. Yi Wuhui is gentle, introverted, and quiet. They both admit that they are sisters, but they gradually drifted apart. This situation has become more serious since the ancestral master disappeared. Bu Shinkong sighed. I heard that it was a life and death situation. Actually, Bu Wuhui has always wanted to kill Yi Wuhui. Sumo said. Yes. Bu Shinkong nodded. Once, I believed in Bu Xiyun's memory and thought that Bu Wuhui was a divine puppet. Divine puppets killing their masters can be explained. However, I realized that it is not that simple. Especially what happened today, it is even weirder. Then, Bu Shinkong flipped his hand and a 3-inch puppet appeared in his palm. The puppet looked exactly like Bu Shinkong. Divine puppets have their own divine souls. Other than the divine souls, they have something more important, which is the natal puppet. Bu Shinkong held the 3-inch puppet in his hand. This is my natal puppet, but because I'm a reincarnator of the 3 realms, I can't control it. However, because I am a reincarnator of the 3 realms, it is useless to me. However, once the natal puppet of other divine puppets is controlled by someone else, everything about the divine puppet will be controlled by that person. However, there is one thing, god puppets cannot control other god puppets. Suemo said with a smile. That's right. Bu Shinkong said. Once a divine puppet obtains its natal puppet, it can become a real person. I understand. Sumo nodded. Brother Yi, clean up the mess in Pure Land with the others. I will go somewhere first, I will be back in a few days. Sumo did not wait for Yi Sanqing's reply and took a step forward. Instantly, Sumo and the demonic boat disappeared from Pure Land. Chapter 631. Boundless and Limitless. In the entire Yizong major world, Dongyi Stellar region was just a small corner. However, a butterfly flapping its wings could affect the entire world, let alone a war in the Pure Land. The Star River's remnant had assimilated the entire Dongyi Star region. This naturally attracted the attention of many major powers of the Yizong world. Ancient Lotus Star Zone. The ancient Lotus Galaxy and Dongyi Galaxy were neighbors. They both belonged to the Dust realm. The former was in the south, while the latter was in the east. At this time, there were tens of thousands of soldiers stationed at the border of Gulian. Banners fluttered in the wind, and countless warships could be seen. The army of cultivators stretched on endlessly. From afar, it looked like a special nebula. In the center of the ancient Lotus army, a flagship hovered in the void. It was 8,000 feet long and 1,000 feet wide. The immortal flag covered the sky, its aura majestic, as if it was a floating continent. Many cultivators stood at the bow of the flagship. The person in the lead was dressed in white and had a handsome face. He wore soft armor on the inside and a large cloak on the outside, giving off an extraordinary aura. It was none other than Li Beihan, the crown prince of the Li dynasty. The entire army of cultivators of the Li dynasty was under his command. The ancient Lotus Star region had been paying attention to the battle at the Dongi Pure Land. At the same time, thousands of miles away, Dongi Star region was also filled with battleships and countless banners, ready for battle. The absolute power of the Corpse-less sect in the third star zone of Eastern E was gathered here. Bu Si Yun had already prepared everything. He was summoned by Bu Wuhui. However, the third starfield of Dongi was still impregnable to outsiders. Dongi third star region had 1,000 small worlds and a total of 100 puppet kings. At this time, close to a third of the people had gathered at the border of Dongi and Gulian. Even the weakest of them was at the sea annihilation level. The army of cultivators and the army of puppets faced each other from afar, but they did not clash. The purple-clothed army was Bu Si Yun's personal army. Apart from Bu Si Yun, the absolute power of the corpse-less sect in the third star area of Dongi was restrained here. This was what Li Beihan could do for Sumo and the others. On Gulian's side, Li Beihan was calm and unruffled. Because if Bu Si Yun dared to use the power of this place, then it would be impossible. Then, Li Beihan would charge in brandishing his spear. The third sector of Dongi would definitely be annexed by the Li dynasty. The corpse-less sect would never pay such a price. After all, it was just a pure land world. It was not worth mobilizing so many people. At the border of the two regions, swords were drawn, but no one dared to act rashly. They maintained a kind of balance very tacitly. However, the Battle of the Pure Land should have started to affect this place. There was a water mirror in front of Li Beihan. Everything that happened in the Battle of the Pure Land was still vivid in his mind. Sumo was reborn and summoned the remnant of the Star River. Li Beihan hadn't expected that. Li Beihan, Sumo could probably overthrow Tianfu City. However, he didn't expect the war to develop to such an extent. In the end, Bu Wuhui was sealed. Bu Si Yun was a divine puppet. That made Li Bei feel even colder. However, that also made everything simpler. The power of the galaxy was still spreading, but it hadn't reached them yet. After all, it wasn't something that could be accomplished in a day or night. The corners of Li Beihan's mouth curled up, because Sumo had already taken control of the situation. Moreover, it wasn't just the Pure Land world that she had taken control of. Perhaps it was the entire East E-Star area. At this moment, the corpse-less sect had some strange actions. On the flagship, an old man in black furrowed his brows. He was the first puppet king under Bu Si Yun's command. He was a 7th-level Immortal Realm puppet. At this moment, he couldn't sense Bu Si Yun's existence anymore. It had never happened in tens of thousands of years since he had started cultivating. Theoretically, there was only one possibility: Bu Si Yun had fallen. However, the puppet king didn't believe that it would happen. In his mind, Bu Si Yun was like a god. How could she fall? At the same time, the other puppet kings looked at him, because they couldn't sense Bu Si Yun's existence anymore. The puppet king's face was dark like water. Then, he shouted coldly, "Wait for my order. Don't let Gulian enter our world. Anyone who dares to move, kill. Anyone who dares to talk nonsense, kill." His voice reverberated through the entire army. Instantly, the great army of the corpse-less sect quieted down. On the other side, Gulian's flagship. Li Beihan looked at the great army of the corpse-less sect and nodded slightly. No matter what, this army of puppets was well trained. They weren't just a motley crew. Unfortunately, Bu Si Yun would never come back. "Prince, it's our good chance now. This subordinate asks for your order to wipe out Dongi for you." At this moment, a tall and muscular cultivator next to Li Beihan said, "Oh, When Li Beihan heard this, he couldn't help but smile playfully. General Shao, did I say that I would sweep through Dawni? General Shao was a little surprised. Then, he said, we have 300,000 soldiers and several thousand battleships. Are we just bluffing? Are we not going to wipe out Dawni? Bluffing? Haha. Li Beihan sneered. General Shao, what do you mean? This subordinate thinks that since the army of the dynasty has gathered here and we have a chance, we should seize the opportunity to advance and expand our territory to raise our country's prestige. General Shao lowered his head, but his tone was unyielding. Haha. Expand our territory to raise our country's prestige. Li Beihan looked at General Shao coldly. Prince Yu told you to say that, right? Then why isn't Prince Yu's army here? This subordinate doesn't understand, Prince. General Shao said. I don't dare to be selfish on behalf of the Li dynasty. Don't dare to be selfish. Li Beihan's lips curled. He suddenly shouted coldly, You're a direct descendant of Prince Yu. Do you think I don't know that? Take him down. Prince. General Shao's expression changed. He moved and retreated dozens of feet. However, no matter how fast he wasn't as fast as the two attendants behind Li Shui. Whoosh, because they were two young winged clan members. With a flap of their wings, they arrived next to General Shao. In an instant, General Shao's eyes turned cold. He was the Li dynasty's general and had made great contributions in expanding their territory. There was nothing wrong with what he said just now. However, Li Beihan had ordered him to be captured. Could it be that he already knew everything? Boom, bang. How could he give up without a fight? He spread his arms and shot out two streams of air. As for the winged clan attendants, they each left an afterimage. Bang, bang. The two attendants' arms were already on General Shao's shoulders. General Shao was a lifetime level 7 Immortal Realm expert. In the entire Li army, he was a first-class expert. However, he didn't expect that the two little guards who had been silently following behind Li Beihan were actually so powerful. A lifetime peak Immortal Realm expert. Fight. When General Shao's arms were grabbed, he instantly felt two streams of air locking his Dan Si. However, at the last moment, he shouted and spat out a beam of immortal light. Boom, crack. That beam of immortal light was as fast as lightning. It shot up to the sky and then exploded. The seven-colored light was like rain. Li Beihan's expression changed slightly. He raised his eyebrows. Because that was the signal cannon of General Shao's army. When he looked again, he saw hundreds of battleships moving toward Dongyi Star region. At this time, General Shao's guards on the flagship suddenly attacked. Traitors! Kill without mercy! Li Beihan's face tightened, his murderous aura filling the air. At the same time, he looked at the hundreds of battleships charging toward Dongyi and sneered. Chapter 632. 100 warships charged straight for Dongyi. The Li dynasty's flagship was covered in a bloody mist. General Shao's bodyguards were killed by Li Beihan's other generals as soon as they made a move. General Shao was imprisoned on the flagship by two winged clan guards. What crime have I committed, Crown Prince? General Shao asked Li Beihan in a low voice. What crime have you committed? Don't you know? Li Beihan sneered, then pointed at the 100 warships that were already charging toward Dongyi. Who gave you the order to attack Dongyi? I was eager to make a contribution. Please forgive me, Crown Prince. General Shao was still defending himself. Crown Prince, as long as we send troops now, we'll definitely pacify Dongyi. My troops have already charged in. Please send reinforcements as soon as possible, Crown Prince. Ha ha ha! Li Beihan couldn't help but laugh. General Shao, you're a famous general of the Li dynasty. You can be said to have made a great contribution. But why are you acting so despicably today? Li Beihan's expression turned cold. General Shao, the warships you're leading this time are all Li cultivators who have gone through thick and thin with you. But I won't be saving them today. General Shao was stunned. Because you're all Prince Yu's best friends. You're betting with their lives that I'll attack Dongyi. Li Beihan narrowed his eyes. Actually, Gulian and Dongyi are the best choices. I'm only deploying troops here as a form of deterrence. I've never really thought of starting a war. But I'm afraid Prince Yu doesn't think so. It's because he wants to use the Dongyi Corps-less sect to exhaust my royal father's forces, right? Li Beihan looked coldly at General Shao. If I really attack Dongyi today, the corpse-less sect will fight to the death. Even if the Li dynasty wins, they'll suffer heavy losses. But then, Prince Yu's forces will be able to suppress my father, right? General Shao was silent. What a good plan! But has Prince Yu thought about it? Once the Li dynasty starts a war with the corpse-less sect, will White River just sit back and watch? Once the balance of power in Doluo Astral is broken, the consequences will be unimaginable. Perhaps the entire Li dynasty will be plagued by internal and external troubles and fall apart. What is the throne of the Dali dynasty? General Shao, the thoughts in your hearts are worthless in the eyes of us father and son. We only wish for the Dali kingdom to be safe and sound, without any worries or troubles. Who was the king? So what? However, we must kill anyone who dares to harm Dali. Like you. As he spoke, Li Beihan raised his hand and a beam of white light appeared. The white light was like a knife, flashing several feet. Puff! Li Beihan gave a cold shout. The blade in his hand descended, directly splitting General Shao's physical body into two, but it did not sever his divine soul. Li Beihan, Prince Yu won't let you go. General Shao gritted his teeth. I'm a general of the great Li dynasty. The monarch won't let you off easily either. When a general is outside, he doesn't obey military orders. Furthermore, you have committed treason, so naturally you should be killed. General Shao, I want you to witness the destruction of your direct line of descent. I won't save them. Those warships will be my congratulatory gift to Sumo. Li Beihan's white cloak fluttered in the wind. All of this was within his calculations. At this time, the 100 warships that had rushed into Dongyi had already been surrounded by the warships of the corpse-less sect. The disparity in combat strength was too great, and they were basically sending themselves to death. In fact, it had to be said that the Celestial Army under General Shao's command was extremely powerful. However, it was still inferior to a tiger in a pack of wolves. On the flagship of the corpse-less sect, the black-clothed puppet king narrowed his eyes. He really did not understand what the Great Li dynasty was doing. Did these 100 or so warships come to die? Li Beihan had always kept few soldiers. At this time, there was no longer a General Shao in his army. Crown Prince! General Shao's divine soul shouted. Even if I am guilty, the soldiers of the dynasty are not. Are you going to watch them be killed without doing anything? It's you who sent them to their deaths. Li Beihan said. You? General Shao did not expect Li Beihan to be so calm. At this time, many generals on the flagship were slightly moved. No matter what, those who died were comrades of the Great Li dynasty. Crown Prince. At this time, a white-haired old general on Li Beihan's left hesitated, but still called out in a low voice. Li Beihan knew very well what he wanted to say. Old General Bai, there is no need to say more. Li Beihan directly interrupted him. A general's success is built on the bones of thousands. We have to plan for the future of the dynasty, and we cannot lose the bigger picture because of the small things. Yes. The white-haired general sighed and said no more. Boom, crack, boom, between the stars smoke filled the air, and battle intent soared to the sky. However, it was still a battle that could not be compared. The sky was full of blood mist that could not be dispersed. In less than 2 hours, the Great Li cultivators on the 100 or so Great Li dynasty warships were all slaughtered, and more than a dozen warships even directly exploded. Although the corpse-less sect also had warships destroyed and puppets killed. For them, it was a complete victory. However, there was not a trace of a smile on the face of the black-clothed puppet king, because he had an extremely ominous premonition in his heart. Puppet King, do you want to take advantage of this victory and directly devour the ancient lotus? A puppet general under the black-clothed puppet king asked. Don't be impatient. The black-clothed puppet king shook his head. The current situation was very strange. The army of the Great Li dynasty was extremely powerful. The destruction of those warships earlier did not affect them at all. Now, a careless decision could cause the hundreds of thousands of soldiers of the corpseless sect to die without a burial ground. At this moment, a small formation suddenly appeared in front of the black-clothed puppet king. A green bird flew out of the formation. Of course, it was not a real green bird, but a puppet bird. As soon as the green bird appeared, the black-clothed puppet king's expression suddenly changed. This was because the green bird was the highest-level communication tool in the corpseless sect. The green bird was above the purple woodkite. In the entire Dongi galaxy, there was only one person who was qualified to use the green bird to send messages. That was the eldest prince, Bushinkong. He was the #1 person of the corpseless sect in Dongi galaxy. He could not catch the aura of the second prince, Busiyun, but the eldest prince, Bushinkong's green bird, had arrived. The black-clothed puppet king already knew the result in his heart. The black-clothed puppet king reached out with one hand, and the green bird directly landed on his arm. Bushinkong's divine will directly poured into the black-clothed puppet king's sea of consciousness. The second prince has fallen. Puppet king, return quickly. The green bird only transmitted one sentence from Bushinkong. However, this sentence was enough. This was because all the puppets of the corpseless sect would follow one principle. If their master was alive, then their master's orders would always come first. However, once their master had fallen, they would obey the highest commander of the corpseless sect in the galaxy they were in. Bushinkong's order was now a divine decree. Yes. The black-clothed puppet king did not hesitate at all. His setting made him completely obedient to everything. At the same time, he had already transmitted this order to all the puppet kings. Whoosh, whoosh, in an instant, all the puppet kings gathered on the flagship. Then, the formation on the flagship opened, and they all disappeared together. There was not the slightest delay. However, the warships of the corpseless sect were still guarding the border, like flood dragons. Their formation was not messed up at all. Li Beihan looked at this from afar and could not help but sigh. The execution of puppets was sometimes far better than that of humans. The corpseless sect was an extremely terrifying force. If Sumo took control of Dongi, then there would be no more battles at the border. However, Li Beihan would definitely not set out. This was because he would always be stationed here. He could only restrain the Great Li dynasty with a large number of troops outside. No one dared to act rashly. Chapter 633. There were also many wandering cultivators in the vast Tibet. It was not that they had nowhere to go, but that they had a destination. They all once belonged to the three realms and the galaxy. The battle in the pure land of Dongi Starfield had naturally attracted their attention. That was because they had sensed an extremely strong aura of the three realms. Cultivators from the 4 major starfields all looked in the direction of Dongi Starfield. That was the strongest fluctuation and summon in the Izong realm for tens of thousands of years. White River Starfield. A silver-haired man in a white robe suddenly stopped in his tracks. He was walking hurriedly between the starfields. He had been searching for everything in the three realms for tens of thousands of years. However, he stopped at that moment. He looked in the direction of Dongi Starfield and frowned slightly. According to his concept of time, he should have just arrived from the Prajna realm, and it had been less than 1,000 years since he arrived in the Dustnet realm. 1,000 years was like an instant to him. The Prajna realm was a realm of the same level as the Dustnet realm. Will there really be gains in the Dustnet realm? The silver-haired man in white smiled faintly, then turned around and turned into a ray of white light. The ray of white light headed straight for Dongi Starfield. Dead Souls Starfield. A girl in red sat cross-legged on a star. The star was extremely desolate and filled with a heavy sense of death. Dead Souls Starfield. It was obvious from its name that it was the death zone of the Dustnet realm. Dead Souls Starfield was the largest starfield among the 4 major starfields. It had tens of thousands of small worlds. However, most of those small worlds were already devoid of life. Legend had it that the Dead Souls Starfield had experienced an ancient war. It was a fragment of a great world. Therefore, the Dead Souls Starfield could be said to be the graveyard of the Dustnet realm. The girl in red was extremely beautiful. She was dressed in red, but it seemed to be stained with blood. She exuded an extremely special aura, like a demon but not a demon, like a ghost but not a ghost. She sat cross-legged on a black mountain, surrounded by endless black chi. However, the black chi lingering around her seemed to be nourishing her. The seal the girl in red was using was quite strange, because it was the seal of a dead spirit. Such a seal could definitely exhaust the life force of an entire star. At the same time, she had a pair of extremely strange eyes that were bottomless. An ordinary person would probably be deeply immersed in it with just a glance. At this moment, the red-clothed girl also sensed the aura of East E-Star region. She looked towards the east but did not move. That was because she needed to cultivate for a period of time before she could reach the rebirth state. The Dead Soul Star region was the best place for her to cultivate. Here, she could almost have the entire undead world provide her with supplies. Dead souls were exactly what she needed. She did not know exactly what was happening in Dongi Star region, but the aura of the 3 realms galaxy still made her heart tremble slightly. The power of the River of Stars? The red-clothed girl frowned. Who is it? Who actually summoned the power of the 3 realms? Other than my brother, who else has that kind of ability? She had no answer. Then, she slowly closed her eyes and continued to cultivate. Ancient Lotus Star Zone. The southernmost part of the Dongi Pure Land could be said to be across half of the dust world. However, the distance between the star domains was actually very difficult to measure in the ordinary sense. This was because the distance between them was not only in terms of space, but also in terms of time. It was an extremely wonderful feeling. At that moment, a female cultivator in a purple robe was sitting cross-legged on a purple lotus platform. She was moving forward in one small world after another. She had maintained this state for tens of thousands of years, because she had been wandering in Izong, just to find the person she was looking for. Her determination was far greater than that of ordinary cultivators. Because her name was Hanbingi. She was not a reincarnator, but she was one of the first cultivators to enter Izong. She had created the northern Chill City. But she had not returned for a long time. She had once traveled between the River of Stars and Izong until the passage was closed. After the River of Stars shattered, Hanbingi began to wander around. Actually, Hanbingi had been cultivating the Heartless Tao for a long time. But after the River of Stars shattered, she could not remain indifferent. Sometimes she was confused. What was she looking for? The Northern Chill clan? The Sea clan? Or the AMU clan? She could not even tell herself. However, her heart urged her to keep searching. That search seemed to have become her everything. In the ancient Lotus Galaxy, she had already seen the ancient Holy Lotus. Li Shui, the 3rd prince of the Li dynasty in the ancient Lotus Galaxy. Li Shui had already entered the Venerable Realm. But Li Shui did not have reliable information about AMU. He was also looking for him. AMU's life had become a mystery. So, Hanbingi left the Li dynasty. As Hanbingi went further and further away from the northern Chill City, her connection with the city was almost cut off. So, she could not receive Miao Long-er's message. AMU was in the Glaze realm, but she had given Miao Long-er a jade pendant. Once the jade pendant was crushed, her real body would instantly return. But that would be a huge consumption. She had warned Miao Long-er not to use it unless it was a critical moment. So, she knew Miao Long-er would not break it easily. However, on this day, Han Bingyi's heart trembled. She was already at the peak of the rebirth realm, which was the 9th level of the eternal realm. Such a realm was something that Han Bingyi could only dream of in the past. Now, she had reached it. However, at this stage, Han Bingyi did not feel the slightest bit happy. Because the person she had longed for was no longer there. Things are not the same as people, so what is there to be happy about? Han Bingyi cultivated the heartless Tao. Her heart was as cold as ice. All those years ago, when she left the 3 realms, her heart had already been sealed. Her heartless Tao had been impeccable for tens of thousands of years. In the northern Chill City, the city lord was known as the Heartless Tao. She did not seem to care about anything except Miao Long. The number of Tibetan cultivators that died under the ice mountain was uncountable. At that moment, Han Bingyi was shocked. This was because when Han Bingyi looked back at Dong Yi, she felt that something was wrong. In fact, the power of the Star River would not have reached her. That feeling could only be said to be a mysterious feeling for Han Bingyi. Han Bingyi was worried. Whoosh, so, Han Bingyi formed a seal on the lotus platform and a water mirror appeared. However, there was no specific image on the water mirror. 5-colored light covered the entire mirror. That was the only thing on the mirror. The splendor was like a tide that spread out in all directions. Covered the entire Dong Yi galaxy. Han Bingyi raised an eyebrow. That's the Star River tide. Who was it that had such great power? Creating another Star River in Yizong. Sumo? Han Bingyi's eyes flashed, but she was not sure. Creating another Star River in Yizong. Not even a venerable could do that. Han Bingyi looked at the stars in the distance. She would be able to search the entire ancient Lotus Galaxy in another 1,000 years. Even though Li Shui had said that AMU would not be in the ancient Lotus Galaxy, Han Bingyi still insisted on searching on her own. She had already searched Dongyi, Gulian, and White River Star regions. She did not find AMU. She did not even see a reincarnator of the 3 realms that she was familiar with. Maybe she had missed him, but she would keep searching. Han Bingyi put away the mirror and formed a seal. She wanted to communicate with Miao Long-er, but there was no response. At that moment, Han Bingyi's heart tightened. Because she was not sure if the appearance of the Star River was good or bad. She had to go back. AMU, Han Bingyi looked at the endless galaxy, and tears rolled down her eyes. Heartless. Even after she had lost her emotions. But MU was a dream that Han Bingyi could not get rid of. No matter when, no matter where, I will find you. Han Bingyi waved her hand and put away the purple lotus platform. Then, a long neigh came from the void. The War Horse King appeared beside her. It raised its front hooves and spread its wings. It could jump through space and time. Han Bingyi jumped on her horse and headed straight for the Dong Yi Pure Land. Chapter 634. In an unknown place in the vast universe. Everything that happened in Dong Yi Starfield had naturally alarmed those peerless experts. That was because they had been observing many worlds from different spacetimes. And this unknown place was the place where their divine senses converge. Chun Luo Dongyi, there's a small movement. Happy Lady's voice was the first to be heard. The remnant of the Star River has been forcibly dragged to Yizong. The place where it used to be has become a black hole. I'm afraid a black lotus is about to form. The aged voice of Elder Lian followed. Heartless, everything in Yizong doesn't seem to be going smoothly. Elder Lian continued, your people didn't get rid of that alien in the Star River either. There was silence for a long time. My people miss them. Heartless voice finally responded, that son of the Star River seems to have mastered a kind of lotus technique. He can travel through time. My people didn't catch up with him. Lotus technique? Lotus's voice was a little surprised. That's right. It's said to be a kind of space-time lotus technique. It should be of a very high level. Otherwise, the cultivators I sent wouldn't have returned empty-handed, Heartless said. Haha. Heartless, if you really don't have anyone to use, I can send my people to Izong to help you, Happy Lady said with a smile. Happy Lady, Izong is my domain. Heartless' voice was cold and firm. Haha. It's yours now, but if you can't complete the purification, it won't be yours anymore. Happy Lady's tone didn't change, but her charming voice was full of threat. I'll complete the evolution according to the agreement. If I can't complete it, I'll fulfill my promise. But before that, if anyone dares to touch my Izong world, don't blame me for being heartless. Ahmed Bao. Love Monk chanted and then laughed. Heartless, don't be angry. It's best for all 4 realms to advance together. That's the right way. Unless it's absolutely necessary, we won't devour each other and damage our strength. However, Heartless, don't let your guard down. The little monk is right. Elder Lien sighed. Heartless, don't worry. None of us will cross the line, but you have to take care of everything. We've been planning for millions of years, we can't let it all go to waste. The situation in the Izong world was indeed rather complicated. We won't interfere, but you have to know what you're doing. Heartless understands. Since there was a pure land within Izong, then I will turn that pure land into a graveyard for the cultivators of the 3 realms. I will catch them all in one fell swoop and eliminate any future troubles. My men are chasing after him again. Heartless smiled coldly. No one can overturn the heavens in my heartless hands. He said the last sentence to himself, but also to the other 3. The others did not respond. The unknown place returned to peace. Northwest of Dongi Galaxy. A black-robed cultivator wearing a bamboo hat suddenly appeared. He was like a ghostly shadow, constantly leaping in the void. There seemed to be no pattern to the jump. At the same time, another white-clothed figure was also leaping through space. The white-clothed figure was none other than Sumo. Whoosh, 2 figures, one black and one white, leaped through different spaces. They seemed to be very far apart. They were like 2 parallel lines, no matter how long they stretched, they could not meet. However, just as Sumo took a step, the black-clothed cultivator suddenly appeared in front of him. Wait! The black-clothed cultivator's voice was low and slightly cold. Oh? Sorry to keep you waiting. Sumo suddenly stopped, and then he could not help but smile faintly. Because he had already sensed that someone was chasing after him. In fact, he already had this premonition when he was in the Pure Land. That was one of the reasons why he left the Pure Land in such a hurry. Even now, Sumo still could not figure out what kind of footwork his 49 steps were. However, as his realm increased, he could already use his footwork relatively freely. He could even combine them at will. Sumo casually took 7 steps in the void. 7 steps meant 7 worlds. Some worlds were extremely desolate, while some worlds were prosperous. However, Sumo did not stop at any of them. After walking, he could not stop. Because, Sumo had always been waiting for that person to appear. He knew that person would definitely be able to keep up. Whoosh, when Sumo's 8th step landed on a barren star, the black-clothed cultivator finally stood in front of him. Rebirth Realm 5. That black-clothed cultivator's realm was exactly the same as Sumo's. However, his body emitted an extremely strange aura. However, Sumo was not afraid. At this moment, between them, was endless yellow sand. This star did not have any life. Sir, who are you? Sumo asked with a smile. Izong's people. The black-clothed cultivator's voice was slightly heavy. Oh? Izong's people? A light flashed in Sumo's eyes. Because this answer was very interesting. Izong's people implied that there might be people other than Izong. Why are you blocking my way? Sumo asked. I was ordered to kill you. The black-clothed cultivator's answer was very simple. At the same time, His movements were even simpler. In an instant, he turned into a black shadow and went straight for Sumo. Whoosh, black smoke was left in the entire void. It was Sumo's first time seeing such a movement technique. Even though Sumo was prepared, he was still slightly shocked. However, Sumo's figure also moved. He hurriedly retreated. At the same time, black fog instantly surged under Sumo's feet. That black fog, it was a technique that could attack and defend. Bang, the black-clothed cultivator plunged into the black fog. In theory, he should have fallen into a kind of illusion array. However, the black fog actually only caused him to pause for a moment before he directly passed through it. Sumo's Dao technique did not seem to have much of an effect on it. Sumo's eyebrows twitched. It seemed that this black-clothed cultivator was stronger than he had expected. Although he looked like he was only in the Rebirth Realm 5, his battle power should be far above this realm. Sumo waved one hand. Whoosh, in an instant, the sky was filled with green radiance. It was none other than the immortal vine that Buwuhue had once used the power of the Purple Demon Palace to break. It was also a fragment of the broken bamboo pole. However, although it was broken, it was only a change in form. It could change according to Sumo's thoughts. At this moment, Sumo's thoughts moved. Rays of green radiance instantly condensed. In the void, countless green silks appeared and went straight for the black-clothed cultivator. Each of the green silks contained the power of rebirth. Chi, chi, chi. The sound of air being pierced could be heard as the green radiance filled the sky. At this moment, the yellow sand on this planet had already been brought up by the power of their confrontation. The yellow sand in the sky was like a layer of clouds. Whoosh, the black-clothed cultivator reacted quickly. His hands immediately formed a technique. First hide, sand array. Looking again, the yellow sand that filled the sky was actually being used by him. The yellow sand that originally filled the sky had directly formed a thick sand wall. Although it was called a sand wall, it was actually like a mountain. Chi, chi, boom. Sumo's green silks landed on the sand wall, creating a loud noise, but were instantly annihilated. At that moment it was like a clay ox entering the sea. However, the corner of Sumo's mouth curled up. Rooting, rising recovery. Whoosh, suddenly, countless immortal vines broke out from the side of the sand wall and instantly gathered into a dark green vine that went straight for the black-clothed cultivator's neck. Chapter 635. Like a dragon, the vines wrapped around the man in black. The cultivator in black didn't seem to expect Sumo's technique to be so miraculous, because the vines were clearly absorbing the power of his yellow sand, borrowing power to take root, transplanting flowers onto trees. Sumo's technique was an extremely high-grade, immortal technique. The cultivator in black didn't hesitate and retreated. At the same time, he formed a hand seal. Whoosh! The yellow sand disappeared in an instant. At the same time, an azure flame shot out from under the black bamboo hat. The green flame expanded in the wind, and in an instant, it looked like a long green river. Azure flame vine. The cultivator in black was extremely confident in his azure flame. If he wanted to, he could turn the stars he was on into ashes. Sumo's immortal vine might seem powerful, but it shouldn't be able to stop his azure flame. Whoosh! However, something happened that the cultivator in black didn't expect happened. Although his azure flame could burn anything, it couldn't burn Sumo's immortal vine. Not only that, but the immortal vine seemed to be able to devour the power of his technique. Whoosh! In an instant, a streak of azure light was already in front of him. The immortal vine's speed was unbelievably fast, far exceeding the cultivator's expectations. At the same time, a fragrance wafted into his nose. It was the fragrance of a lotus. Lotus vine? The cultivator in black was shocked. At this time, he finally realized what grade of treasure Sumo's immortal vine was. Sumo's immortal vine was a lotus vine. It was a lianbois. The lianbois was in existence even higher than a venerable divine armament. Because every lianhua was formed from a part of the immortal lotus. They weren't refined by cultivators, but were formed from the origin of a world. From this point of view, only the 9 coffins in the entire 3 realms galaxy were of that grade. Even the demon boat that Sumo had right now was inferior, because it wasn't a part of the immortal lotus. Sumo came from the galaxy, so why would he have a lianhua? The black-robed cultivator was confused. However, this was not the time for him to figure it out. Sumo's lotus vine had already wrapped around his neck. It was already impossible for the black-robed cultivator to break free. At the same time, the lotus vines took root on his body, as if they were going to grow on his body. The intense pain caused the black-robed cultivator's heart to tremble. Sumo's strength had exceeded his expectations. A cold smile appeared on Sumo's face. Now, his usage of the lotus vine had reached a whole new level. This was because he discovered that when the broken bamboo pole turned into a vine, it could actually absorb the opponent's power. At this moment, Sumo reached out with one hand. Chi-Chi, one end of the lotus vine, had completely bound the black-robed cultivator, while the other end was in Sumo's hand. A Tibetan cultivator is only SOSO, Sumo sneered. Then, he took the lotus vine into his bosom. A green light flashed on the lotus vine, and the black-robed cultivator was directly thrown into the void by Sumo along with the lotus vine. The sky of this star was completely dark brown, and there was almost no light at all. Whoosh! The lotus vine was like lightning, and the black-robed cultivator was like a dragon. However, at the moment when Sumo threw the lotus vine, he felt that the black-robed cultivator had no weight at all. Huh! Sumo was stunned. At this moment, Sumo found that his lotus vine had only bound an empty shadow. And on the left front of Sumo, another shadow had already grabbed him. However, it was really a shadow, not the black-robed cultivator's body. Sumo dodged to the side. However, behind Sumo, another shadow appeared, also grabbing at Sumo. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Sumo could only dodge again. However, the most terrifying thing was that as soon as Sumo moved, the direction where he wanted to land was blocked. It was still a shadow. Boom! This time, Sumo did not dodge again. Because he could no longer dodge. That shadow directly stretched out a black claw, fiercely grabbing at Sumo's chest. The power of samsara. Moreover, there was a faint white sharpness on the black claw. There seemed to be 5 daggers embedded in the 5 fingers, and Sumo raised his eyebrows, and a blood-red rose instantly appeared in front of him. In fact, the so-called 3 realms devil flower had now completely integrated into Sumo's body. As long as he willed it, it would appear. Bang! The black claw was blocked by the blood-red rose, and with a bang, it turned into nothingness. However, at the same time, there were 7 more shadows in the void, attacking Sumo. Sumo no longer dodged. He suddenly turned around, bringing with him countless blood-red roses. His white clothes flew, and the red flowers filled the sky. The power of samsara spun like a top. Bang, bang! The 7 black shadows were all defeated. They seemed to be powerless. At this time, Sumo's lotus vine had returned to his hand. All he brought back was a long black robe and a large bamboo hat. The cultivator in black disappeared without a trace. Whoosh! Not far from Sumo, black light gathered. The cultivator in black just now, at this time, stood in front of Sumo, safe and sound. He was still wearing a black robe and a bamboo hat. Everything just now, as if nothing had happened. 2 bamboo hats? 2 black clothes? Your lotus vine is not bad. The cultivator in black's voice was calm and low. Your escape technique is also not bad. Sumo shook one hand, and the black robe and bamboo hat instantly turned into powder. But, how many doppelgangers do you have? The cultivator in black could not help but be slightly surprised. Because there were definitely not many cultivators who could see that he had doppelgangers at a glance. Just now, in order to quickly get rid of the lotus vine, he had to use his doppelganger technique. However, he did not expect that it would be seen through by Sumo at a glance. Within the three realms, there seems to be a doppelganger technique like yours? We call it the mysterious yellow secret technique. Sumo's mouth curled up. Indeed, this cultivator in black's doppelganger technique had some shadow of Ching Mozi. I don't know what mysterious yellow secret technique is. But, so what if you can see that I have doppelgangers? The cultivator in black continued in a deep voice, today you can't escape. Even if you have the lotus vine in your hand, it's useless. Whoosh! The cultivator in black waved one hand, and a long black whip appeared in his hand. At first glance, the long whip looked a bit like Yixingbai's Moro star-studded whip, but it was darker and brighter than the Moro-studded whip, and there were no runes on it. Crack! The cultivator in black shook his wrist. The long black whip directly flashed in the void, and then went straight to Sumo's lotus vine. Sumo frowned. She felt that the long black whip in the hands of the cultivator in black was somewhat different. However, Sumo sneered, and with a shake of her hand, the lotus vine had already flown out. One green and one black, two splendor instantly intersected in the void. They were like two long snakes, entangling together. At the same time, Sumo grasped the void with one hand. Whoosh, whoosh, the blood-colored rose suddenly appeared, directly condensing into a long spear in the void. The blood-colored spear was full of murderous intent. Sumo moved forward. The spear pierced through the void, heading straight for the cultivator in black. At this time, the cultivator in black also went straight for Sumo. However, he did not use any magic treasure, and only came with his bare hands. Whoosh, his hand formed a claw again, directly grabbing Sumo's spear. Sumo flipped her wrist, and the blood-colored spear rose up, stabbing towards the heart of the cultivator in black. Bang! However, she did not expect that the cultivator in black would actually grab out a long whip from his heart. At the same time, his body shook. Whoosh! Another cultivator in black suddenly split out. As soon as the cultivator in black appeared, he directly pounced towards Sumo. The strangest thing was that there was still a long black whip in his hand. At this moment, Sumo could clearly see that the long black whip actually had strands of shiny black hair on it. That was not a whip at all, but a tail. A hidden monster. A light flashed in Sumo's mind. Meow Shoe House. Chapter 636. Chi-Chi. Red flowers instantly formed a formation in front of Sumo. That was his most instinctive reaction. Boom! At the same time, Sumo's blood-colored spear pierced through the black-robed cultivator's chest. However, the black-robed cultivator's body did not move at all. A plume of black smoke dissipated in the void. Boom! Pa! At the same time, the black whip that attacked Sumo actually scattered the red flowers in front of him. Following the black whip, another black-robed cultivator's claw reached out. Chi-Hua! Sumo's dodging was slightly slow. The black-robed cultivator's fingers were like hooks, directly cutting open Sumo's white robe. As Sumo was retreating, another black-robed cultivator appeared in the space where he had been retreating. Boom! The black-robed cultivator directly attacked with a saber strike. At this moment, Sumo was retreating, but he suddenly sensed everything behind him. In an instant, his mind moved. Bang! The black-robed cultivator's saber hand struck Sumo. However, the red flowers in the sky instantly scattered like a meteor shower. However, Sumo's figure was nowhere to be seen in the void. 100 zhang away, Sumo slowly appeared, but his face was slightly pale. Whoosh! Looking again, all the black light in the void gathered on the black-robed cultivator's body. He faced Sumo from afar again, still holding the black whip in his hand. In this second round, Sumo was clearly at a disadvantage. Your escape technique is also not bad, the black-robed cultivator said in a deep voice. In the dust world, you are the first person to be able to block 2 of my attacks. You are a monster from the hidden world? Sumo's tone was slightly heavy. That's right. the black-robed cultivator said. Who sent you to kill me? Sumo asked. You talk a bit too much. The black-robed cultivator did not even answer Sumo's question, but his figure moved and charged towards Sumo. At this moment, Sumo patted her storage bag. Whoosh, the Cosmos magic bag appeared in the void. He wanted to use the Cosmos sack to capture this black-robed cultivator. However, this time, the Cosmos sack did not have the slightest effect in the void. The black-robed cultivator did not seem to be affected at all. Even the black whip in his hand moved freely. What a joke! I am not a puppet. My black whip is also not a magic weapon. The black-robed cultivator pounced towards Sumo. The moment he charged towards Sumo, the number of cultivators increased from 1 to 3. The Trinity. Their movements were synchronized. Sumo's eyes instantly turned black. However, even with her magic eyes, Sumo could not see any difference between them. It really was a mysterious yellow secret technique similar to that of Ching Mozi. The ancient mysterious yellow secret technique was completely different from ordinary cloning techniques. The 3 black-robed cultivators didn't have a master or a subordinate, they were all real bodies. The 3 black-robed cultivators each held a long black whip in their hands. In the past, Ching Mozi was always calm and could even kill a venerable. In addition to being the soul of the heavenly coffin, it was also because he had 7 true bodies. At a critical moment, he could fight against 7. That was equivalent to increasing his combat strength by 7 times. The mysterious yellow doppelganger was an extremely mysterious and terrifying secret skill. Who could fight against it? Now, this black-robed cultivator's cultivation technique was exactly the same as Ching Mozi's. Although Sumo had the ability to kill those above her level, it was extremely difficult for her to defeat this black-robed cultivator. The most important thing was that Sumo did not know how many true bodies this black-robed cultivator had. Currently, he had at least 3 true bodies. In that instant, Sumo did not have the time to think too much. Whoosh, whoosh, the demonic boat appeared under Sumo's feet again. At the same time, Sumo's body also split into 3. Next to the white-robed Sumo, 2 black-robed Sumos appeared. The 3 Sumos' hand seals were different. Dark technique, yin-yang. But the 3 Sumos shouted at the same time. Whoosh, 1 white mist, 2 black mist. The 3 mist instantly formed a Taiji diagram in front of the 3 black-robed cultivators. Then, the entire space began to distort. The moment the Taiji diagram appeared, it directly split the space in half. Bang! The 3 black-robed cultivators had already rushed into the Taiji diagram, but when they passed through it, they could no longer see Sumo. Because they had been transported to another spacetime. Spacetime technique. The black-robed cultivator sneered. Because the moment the 3 black-robed cultivators disappeared, another black-robed cultivator appeared on Sumo's left and right. In other words, the black-robed cultivator had at least 5 clones. However, the techniques of the 2 black-robed cultivators were extremely simple. They did not use any techniques, but instead charged straight at the 2 black-robed Sumos. Boom! The demonic boat under the white-robed Sumo's feet moved, and she instantly retreated several kilometers. Looking again, 2 clouds exploded in the void, and black light soared into the sky. The 2 black-robed cultivators and the 2 black-robed Sumos dissipated at the same time. This kind of power caused the barren star to violently shake. Yellow sand filled the sky, and the earth instantly cracked. Such an ordinary star could not withstand their world-destroying power at this time. At the same time, above Sumo's head, another black-robed cultivator descended from the sky like a ghost. The 6th clone. Sumo was really overwhelmed by all of this. However, Sumo was already prepared. The moment the black-robed cultivator appeared, a wheel appeared above Sumo's head. Boom, crack, above the wheel, 9 beams of light shot out. Woo bang! This wheel was the incarnation of the karma roulette. Although these 9 beams of light were not the 9 coffins, they were a kind of power that imitated the 9 coffins. The black-robed cultivator's 6th clone instantly exploded. Layers of black airwaves spread out like dark clouds. At this moment, if there were cultivators on the barren star, they would definitely be dumbfounded. These 2 Samsara realm cultivators were destroying this world. As soon as the karma roulette appeared, Sumo's cheeks tightened. At this moment, he was almost at his limit. Whoosh, however, the black-robed cultivator did not completely disappear. Right in front of Sumo, a 7th black-robed cultivator appeared, but his black robe was already tattered. There seemed to be no end to the black-robed cultivator. At this moment, the number of clones that appeared was already the same as Ching Mozi. Roulette. Destroy. Sumo's hand seal changed. The roulette above his head instantly enlarged. In an instant, it covered a radius of several hundred kilometers. This was an indiscriminate attack, and it was also Sumo's last big move. This was because the roulette showed that Sumo could not last for too long. After all, Sumo did not have the 9 coffins, unless he used the Pure Land Galaxy technique again to summon the power of the galaxy. However, he could not do that now. In that case, the fusing Pure Land would be destroyed. Boom, bang, the 7th clone of the black-robed cultivator turned into ashes. At this moment, Sumo had killed 7 Samsara realm cultivators in a row. Moreover, any one of these 7 Samsara realm cultivators had the battle power of a 9th stage realm cultivator. The rebirth image above Sumo's head had already become extremely dim. However, a terrifying thing happened again. Whoosh, whoosh, on Sumo's left and right, 2 black-robed cultivators appeared at the same time. Although his black robe was tattered and half of his bamboo hat was broken, his aura was not weak at all. The 8th and 9th clone. At this moment, Sumo's heart tightened. This black-robed cultivator could not be killed? What kind of monster was he? Whoosh, Sumo's demonic boat instantly started to spin. Boundless black mist appeared in the air. At the same time, the lotus vine in Sumo's hand instantly turned into a sky full of green needles. Boom! The black-robed cultivator on the left was directly blocked by the demonic boat, but the black-robed cultivator on the right actually went through the lotus vine defense. A sharp claw directly grabbed onto Sumo's shoulder. Bang, puff, the black-robed cultivator disappeared in the green light. However, Sumo's shoulder was bleeding profusely. At the same time, there was a deep claw mark and a faint black gas on her shoulder. Sumo secretly cursed. He couldn't continue fighting, otherwise, he might really die. Because that black-robed cultivator's claw was actually poisonous. She took a step forward. Sumo brought the demonic boat and directly rushed out of this space. This time, Sumo did not jump randomly. Instead, she took a total of 49 steps, not daring to stop at all. Whoosh, in the void, that black-robed cultivator appeared again. His figure moved, intending to give chase. However, a tall female cultivator in black suddenly appeared in the void and called out softly, "Cat, there's no need to chase." Chapter 637. Sumo had already disappeared. And on the star where he was fighting with the black-robed cultivator, a black-robed female cultivator appeared. The black-robed female cultivator was tall, had fair skin, and was extremely beautiful. However, she had long blue hair and a pair of blue eyes. Those eyes were like blue stars in the starry sky. She floated gracefully in the void, her figure graceful and graceful. At the same time, her eyes looked in the direction where Sumo had disappeared. In that pair of blue eyes, it seemed that Sumo's jumps and falls were reflected. Then, Sumo completely disappeared. Even she couldn't completely keep up with Sumo's footstep. It really is a lotus technique, and it's a high-grade lotus technique. The blue-haired woman smiled gently. At the same time, she waved her hand. Whoosh, looking again, the black-robed bamboo hat cultivator just now actually instantly prostrated on the ground, and then directly turned into a black cat. At this moment, if Sumo was here, she would definitely be extremely surprised. That black cat was 3 feet long, its pores were black, and its eyes were blood red. The most peculiar thing was that it actually had 9 tails. Those 9 tails were all half-hooked behind it. It was a black cat that looked extremely unusual. Or, to be more precise, it was a reincarnation-level cat demon. However, at this time, its whole body was stained with blood. The battle just now could be said to be extremely tragic. Meow, as soon as the blue-haired female cultivator called, the black cat jumped into its master's arms. "Cat, you have suffered." The blue-haired female cultivator smiled. Then, her slender white fingers gently stroked the black cat's body. Looking again, the black cat's wounds instantly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The blue-haired woman's fingers seemed to be filled with endless magic. Meow. The blood-red light in the black cat's eyes gradually converged, and then became extremely docile. It seemed to enjoy its master's touch, and even let out a long yawn. "Ha ha! Cat, there is no need to chase. His space-time lotus technique is not weak, you may not be able to catch up. And the most important thing is that he has already been scratched by you. Your cat poison is not so easy to cure." The blue-haired female cultivator faintly smiled. "Everything will depend on his fortune. If he can survive, then it is his ability. If he can't, then we have completed our mission." The blue-haired female cultivator held the cat in one hand and stroked it with the other. She seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be talking to a cat. "Looks like Heartless is making a mountain out of a molehill. For such a person, I don't even need to do it myself? You alone are enough. Ha ha ha." The blue-haired female cultivator seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but laugh. Meow. The black cat nodded and meowed lazily. "Little cat, I'm afraid that fellow is scared out of his wits by your 9 lives. It's just that your 9 clones are indeed frightening. As long as his body wasn't destroyed, he would recover. Hee hee, sometimes I even envy your ability." The blue-haired female cultivator held the black cat dotingly, then turned around and went straight into the depths of the hidden world. As she walked, the void behind her fluctuated. At that moment, it was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were following behind her. However, none of them appeared. However, she was definitely a terrifying woman. She brought the cat and disappeared into the end of the star. Not long after she disappeared, a white light swept across this world. Demonic aura. The white-robed, silver-haired cultivator couldn't help but stop for a moment before revealing himself. He looked down at the star that was almost destroyed, and he couldn't help but frown. Then, he looked at the place where the blue-haired female in black disappeared. However, he shook his head in the end. Because he didn't believe that the person in his mind would come to such a small world. Whoosh! He turned into a white light again and went straight to the Pure Land. In the Soul Storage Altar Cave. Time is a very strange thing. Because different people will feel the same length of time in the same period of time. Thus, some people feel that time is an instant, while others feel that a day is like a year. In fact, Sumo didn't leave the Soul Storage Altar Cave for long. At most, it was only a few dozen days. However, to Yi Wuhui, who was alone in the Soul Storage Altar Cave, it felt like 3 years had passed. Yi Wuhui was definitely a great cultivator. Even if she only had a soul left, it was still an immortal soul. That day, when Sumo left, she cultivated alone. Originally, she didn't have much of a concept of time. However, to her now, time was a long wait. Moreover, she was a little afraid that the wait would never end. At first, she sat in front of the Soul Storage Altar Cave to cultivate, because she recognized the star chart at the top of the cave. Izong realm was divided into many intermediate realms. Dust Net was one of them, and Dust Net was divided into 4 major galaxies: East E, Ancient Lotus, White River, and Dead Souls. Yi Wuhui saw the 3 stars on the star chart that were constantly flashing. They were at the edge of Dust Net, which belonged to the Dead Souls galaxy. However, Yi Wuhui didn't understand what the star chart represented. 3 days later, Yi Wuhui returned to the back cave to cultivate. However, she still felt that time was passing very slowly. The Flower Valley was full of spiritual energy. However, the spiritual energy didn't mean much to Yi Wuhui. She saw the immortal bathing ancient lotus. It was planted by Sumo for her. Looking at the ancient lotus, her heart warmed. The ancient lotus might need another 2,000 years to bloom. Everything depended on Sumo's cultivation speed. However, as long as the ancient lotus matured, she could use the lotus to reforge her immortal body. Reforge her body. Thinking of this, Yi Wuhui couldn't help but smile. The 3-inch puppet was already in her hands, and she had completely integrated it into her soul. Now, no one could take away her 3-inch puppet. Ding ding dang dang, Yi Wuhui took out the purple wind chime. This was the only thing she didn't destroy when her body was destroyed. Sister, thank you. Leave it to me, Yi Wuhui said to herself. At the same time, there was a trace of disappointment in her heart. It was a kind of indescribable disappointment. At this moment, she suddenly felt a fluctuation of energy in the front cave. Sumo. That was Yi Wuhui's first reaction. Her eyes were filled with infinite surprise. Her body moved, and she was already in the front cave. When she looked again, there was a flash of light in the front cave. A cultivator in white was already standing in the cave. However, Yi Wuhui's expression instantly froze, because in front of her stood an unfamiliar male cultivator. She had never seen that male cultivator before. The male cultivator in white was as beautiful as a demon, and his temperament was extraordinary. It could be said that he was the most beautiful man Yi Wuhui had ever seen. But at the same time, the male cultivator's upper body was covered in blood, and almost his entire white robe was stained. At this moment, the white-robed cultivator's pupils were somewhat slack. The black cat's poison had already taken effect. No one knew how he persevered, and walked into the cave with the soul storage altar. Who are you? Yi Wuhui asked coldly. Because, in her eyes, that was not Sumo at all. Whether it was the realm or the appearance, it was completely different. Miss Yi, save me. After saying that, the white-robed cultivator staggered and fell beside Yi Wuhui's feet, fainting. Chapter 638. Everyone's dreams were different. Sumo's seemed to be different. Dongi Galaxy. The moment he was scratched by the black cat, he went straight to the soul storage altar cave abode. However, his shoulder was already completely numb. Poison. That was the poison of a reincarnation-level demon. If Sumo had started to heal immediately, the poison might not have spread so quickly. However, Sumo could only escape, or he would not have been able to keep his life. Therefore, the black cat's poison spread rapidly. 49 steps by 7. It was a miracle that Sumo could rush back to the soul storage altar cave abode because of his instinct. At this moment, inside the soul storage altar cave abode, Yi Wuhui looked blankly at the man in white under his feet, because he did not recognize that the cultivator in white was Sumo. At this moment, Sumo was in a completely different world. In a daze, Sumo felt that he had stepped into a cave abode. However, it was a different scene in front of him. It was a dim space. It was an unfamiliar tavern. Inside the tavern, the lights were dim and empty. There was not a single customer. There was only a woman in green, wiping the table. The woman in green had a beautiful appearance, elegant and refined, and her body seemed to emit a faint fragrance. She was the plum blossom spirit. Wu-er. Sumo was delighted. At this moment Wu-er was carefully wiping the table. In fact, the table was originally spotless. However, Wu-er was still wiping it very seriously. Grandpa, rest early. Today, the wind and snow outside are very strong. I don't think there will be any customers. Wu-er said while wiping the table. I will go hang the lanterns in a while. She did not seem to hear Sumo's words, nor did she see Sumo come in. Woo-er! Sumo frowned and called again. However, Woo-er still ignored him. When Sumo turned to look, there was no one else in the tavern. The grandpa that Woo-er mentioned was, of course, the Emperor of Taihuang, Shao Tianting. However, Sumo did not see anyone. It was empty behind the counter. There was no one else there. In Sumo's memory, Woo-er told him that she and her grandfather had once opened a small tavern in the desolate sea. However, Sumo had never been to that pub. Why did he come here? Sumo was puzzled. Woo-er! Sumo took 2 steps forward, wanting to pull Woo-er. At this time, Woo-er had already finished wiping the table very quickly. She turned around and ran out of the shop. A purple lantern had appeared in her hand. The lantern was covered in runes. Creak, Woo-er opened the door. As expected, it was snowing heavily outside the shop, and the north wind was howling. However, the lamp in Woo-er's hand emitted a faint purple halo, illuminating a part of the world. The wind and snow couldn't get close to him. Howl, roar. There seemed to be the sound of ghosts wailing and wolves howling in the wind and snow. Woo-er sighed softly. With a wave of her hand, the purple lamp was hung on the wine stall. In the wind and snow, the purple light scattered. Vengeful spirits of heaven and earth, vanish into thin air. Woo-er shouted softly, and then the howling in the wind and snow gradually subsided. Sumo couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Because when Woo-er turned around, he was standing beside Woo-er. But Woo-er directly passed through his body, completely ignoring his existence. Did I vanish into thin air? Sumo's heart trembled. Otherwise, even if it's a soul body, Woo-er should be able to see me. Whoosh! At this time, there was a wind blowing outside the door, and Sumo was instantly sucked out by a strong force. The north wind was howling, and Sumo actually felt a little cold. That kind of feeling was too distant for Sumo. Because that was the smell of mortals. Am I dead? Sumo was slightly flustered. Woo-er! Sumo let out a shout. However, Woo-er couldn't hear or see at all. Creak! The door of the small restaurant was instantly closed, and Sumo lost all her senses in the howling north wind again. In the soul storage altar cave, Yi-Woo-hue looked at Sumo in white, and then gradually calmed down. Before this cultivator in white fainted, he had called her Miss Yi. That at least meant that he knew her. Therefore, Yi-Woo-hue didn't ignore him. Yi-Woo-hue waved his hand, directly suspended Sumo in the void, and then brought her back to the flower valley in the back cave. At this moment, she saw Sumo's face that was as beautiful as a demon's. One was red, one was white, and the other was red. At the same time, she noticed the wound on Sumo's shoulder. Then, she gently put Sumo on the stone bed in the ancient house. Yi-Woo-hue gently brushed with one hand, and the wound on Sumo's shoulder was completely exposed. Black chi lingered, and the skin was purple. 5 clear and slender claw marks caused Yi-Woo-hue's expression to change slightly. 9-tailed raccoon. Izong Yao. Yi-Woo-hue recognized the origin of the wound at a glance, and at the same time, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Izong Yao was extremely mysterious and powerful. Like the winged race, they were a relatively special race in the Izong world. This was because their talents were not something ordinary cultivators possessed. However, Izong Yao basically wouldn't appear in the dust world. They lived more in the wisdom world. The wisdom world was the paradise of the Yao race. A long time ago, Yi-Woo-hue had followed Bu Miaotian to the wisdom world. Bu Miaotian had once told her some things about the Izong Yao. 9-tailed raccoon was a superior great Yao among the Izong Yao. A mature 9-tailed raccoon could reach the rebirth realm, and one could split into 9, extremely powerful. 9 lives, as long as one did not die, they could be reborn. Even in the Izong world, they were extremely powerful Yao. And the wisdom world Yao was an existence that even the corpseless sect did not dare to lightly touch. Where did this white-robed cultivator come from? How could he be injured by nine-tailed raccoon's claws? Could it be that he was a cultivator from the wisdom world? At the same time, Yi Wuhui couldn't help but exclaim. A cultivator that could escape from nine-tailed raccoon's claws could not be said to be weak. Wu-er! Wu-er! At this time, Sumo muttered. Yi Wuhui frowned again. She knew that nine-tailed raccoon's body was extremely poisonous. It was said that the poison mainly corroded a cultivator's soul and divine sense. If it was not a powerful cultivator, as long as they were scratched, their soul would immediately self-destruct, and their sea of consciousness would scatter. Even a powerful cultivator would not be able to withstand the corrosion of the poison on their soul. When the poison spreads, at first, the cultivator would have all kinds of hallucinations, and later on, they would completely lose their mind until they died. This process could last for a few days or a few dozen days. To any cultivator, it was a kind of torture. It could be said to be worse than death. It was said that the only antidote was nine-tailed raccoon itself. As long as it licked the poisoned person's wound, the injured person would be cured. Other than that, there was no other way. At least, Yi Wuhui did not know how to detoxify the poison. This white-robed cultivator probably wouldn't be able to last much longer. Although he asked for help, Yi Wuhui had no way to help him. Not to mention, she was only a soul right now, so she couldn't leave the cave. What could she do to save him? Wu-er, Wu-er, Sumo's body began to tremble, like a mortal afraid of the cold. His face turned red and white, changing at an even faster rate. Yi Wuhui frowned and lightly formed a hand seal. Hu, a purple light gently enveloped Sumo. Yi Wuhui didn't know if it would work, but she hoped that this white-robed cultivator would be able to live a bit better. At this time, Sumo's world had changed again. In front of him was a large river. The river was surging like the ocean, but all living things could sink, because it was called the Forgetting River. Chapter 639. River of Forgetfulness had no beginning and no end, it was endless. Sumo was at a loss. Why was he standing beside the river of forgetfulness? Did he return to the past? Thus he turned around. Sure enough, turning back was the shore. This place was none other than the former Azura Demon Continent's Blood Moon southern region. Dusky yellow river flowed endlessly, looking into the distance. Demon Continent Azura world had no sea, river of forgetfulness was like an ocean. Sumo turned around and naturally saw Blood Moon southern region's immortal town. However, he did not see the huge immortal ship in his memories. The shore was bare, there were some old houses on the shore. Immortal town's immortal 10,000-year immortal ship. Pity, in Sumo's current world, there was only immortal town in the background. Little Six did not appear, immortal old man did not appear. However, this was indeed the immortal town from before. Whoosh, whoosh, waves rose and fell in the river of forgetfulness. Sumo's mind moved. He flew towards Immortal Town. At that moment, Sumo did not know what his realm was, but he seemed to be able to do as he pleased. Immortal Town, black fog suddenly appeared. Then, endless howls came from within the black fog. That howling sound was exactly the same as the one he had heard outside the small hotel. Those were the howls of dead souls, unwilling howls. Azura souls. Sumo knew that the black fog was a gathering of souls. Because he had once fought against the power that supported AMU in Immortal Town. Yet, those people did not appear in this world. For example, Gan Tianqing, Yi Xingbai, etc. Actually, at this moment, Sumo vaguely understood. He was in a dream. That feeling was the same as a mortal's dream. He clearly knew it was a dream, yet he was deep in it. Shouts of killing lingered in his ears. More and more clouds gathered in Immortal Town, covering the world. This should be the most crucial moment back then. Whoosh! Suddenly, Immortal Town flashed with endless profound light. Then, Sumo saw Wu-er. Plum Blossom Fairy held her staff, her blue dress fluttering. At the same time, Sumo also saw herself, Xiao Luo. At this moment, a black vortex appeared between Xiao Luo's eyebrows, and it suddenly expanded. At that moment, the black vortex was like a space-time black hole. The soul energy in the air above Immortal Town, or even the entire Blood South, suddenly rushed downwards. Looking at all of this, Sumo's soul felt an instinctive calling. That was Murong's technique. He was summoning her. Myriad souls returned to the sea. Sumo remembered the battle between him and Amu in Hanji Town for the ghost coffin. At that time, Xiao Luo and Murong Huang needed to merge. When they looked again, Xiao Luo's white-robed body had actually instantly turned into green smoke. Then, he flew directly into the black hole and disappeared without a trace. Not too far away, Plum Blossom 5 was already on the verge of tears. Xiao Luo, Murong, in the end, which one is you? After 3,000 years, I still don't know your heart. You are no longer you, so what am I to you? Plum Blossom 5 smiled sadly. Sumo's heart ached. He had never heard these words before. Because Wu had buried everything deep in her heart. Xiao Luo, Plum Blossom 5 suddenly screamed at the top of her lungs. But she couldn't stop Xiao Luo from leaving. Xiao Luo, from the north to the eastern ridge, from the desolate sea to Azura, from the last 1,000 years to the next, I'm really tired. Plum Blossom 5's tears finally rolled down her cheeks. The ups and downs, the North's Y-Town, the little shop selling wine, those were the happiest days of my life. Xiao Luo, you are no longer you. I don't want to separate reality and illusion, but if you become a demon, I will be truly happy. A mournful smile appeared on Wu-Er's face. Wu-Er! Sumo shouted. Even if this was a dream, he didn't want to see Wu-Er cry. But just like the last dream, Wu couldn't hear Sumo's voice at all. Then, Sumo made a move in his mind and headed straight for Wu-Er. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't reach Wu-Er's side. There seemed to be an invisible chasm between the two of them. Xiao Luo, if I don't die, then I will wait for you to marry me in reincarnation. I hope that when you become a demon, I will still treat you like how I started. Wu-Er's tears fell like rain. The plum blossom staff danced like a wheel. Countless plum blossoms flew in the air like falling pink snow. A faint fragrance wafted through Immortal Town, lingering for thousands of years. 10,000 years of cultivation, 2 lifetimes of waiting. Wu didn't even get to see Xiao Luo's heart. Several of the most beautiful petals flew into the black hole. Then, the plum blossom spirit leaped up. She was going to fight for the desolate sea. Wu Sumo knew that this was a dream, but his heart was bleeding. He remembered the Battle of Azura clearly. However, he didn't see it with his own eyes. Wu the second soul of Zhongtian continent, died in that battle. At this moment, thousands of plum trees appeared in Immortal Town. Among them, there was a lantern hanging on the tallest plum tree. The lantern gave off a strange purple glow. It was the lantern that Sumo saw Wu carrying before. Whoosh, in an instant, the lantern burned, and the plum forest turned into a sea of fire. Wu stood in the sea of fire with tears and smiles. Then, Sumo saw a dragon-like light directly pierce through Wu-Er's body. She died. Wu-Er, Sumo screamed and rushed forward with all his might. Finally, Sumo felt that his body could move. Finally, he rushed into the sea of fire. However, there was no Wu-Er in the sea of fire. Everything was gone. His surroundings changed into another world. He saw a cat, a black leopard cat. It stood quietly in the darkness. However, its eyes were as red as blood. That cat was very strange. Woo meow, the leopard cat raised its neck and howled. Its 2 sharp canines were like cold blades in the dark night. Whoosh, the leopard cat leaped and pounced straight at Sumo. Sumo wanted to dodge, but his body didn't listen to him again. The black leopard cat actually rushed directly into the space between Sumo's eyebrows. In an instant, Sumo felt a splitting headache. Ha ha ha! Sumo, your soul is mine. It was the voice of the black-clothed bamboo hat cultivator. He let out a long howl and lost consciousness. The soul storage altar cave. Yi Wuhui used the purple glow to cover Sumo. However, she saw that Sumo's condition didn't improve at all. Although Yi Wuhui wanted to save this stranger, she couldn't do anything about it. After an unknown period of time, Yi Wuhui saw that the red and white colors on Sumo's face began to develop to her whole body. It could be imagined that Sumo was suffering in the ice and fire. In the beginning, Sumo seemed to be dead and did not react at all. However, later, Sumo began to shout Wu Er. Yi Wuhui didn't know who Wu Er was. However, she couldn't help but feel a trace of emotion in her heart. Because she guessed that it should be a woman's name. This man who was as beautiful as a demon could escape from the claws of nine-tailed raccoon. What kind of woman did he miss in his heart look like? Wu Er. At this moment, Sumo's body shook violently, and then he actually sat up. At the same time, Sumo opened his eyes. However, there was darkness in his eyes. Yi Wuhui raised her eyebrows. Because in Sumo's black eyes, she saw the shadow of a nine-tailed leopard cat. That cat seemed to be laughing coldly. Chapter 640. Wu Er. On the stone bed, Sumo sat up and shouted, her eyes dark. Then, the shadow of the nine-tailed civet cat in her eyes gradually faded. That cat was like a ghost. Sumo once again lay on the bed with his back straight. Yi Wuhui frowned, thought for a moment, then stretched out his hand. A purple light appeared on his fingertip, and directly touched the space between Sumo's eyebrows. That was Yi Wuhui's soul calming technique. However, she did not know if it would be useful to Sumo now. She could only try. She did not know if it was Sumo going through a peaceful period, or if Yi Wuhui's technique was working. Sumo lay on the stone bed. His breathing gradually became even. Although the red and white light on his body was still alternating, his reaction was no longer intense, and he no longer shouted. Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo and walked out of the stone house. At this time, she looked around the slightly empty cave, and could not help but let out a long sigh. In fact, there were many immortal herbs and strange fruits in the flower garden of the entire back cave. Among them, there were a few immortal herbs that had the effect of calming the soul. Those were all rare treasures. If they were used to refine pills, it might be able to relieve Sumo's pain. Unfortunately, Yi Wuhui, like Guan Xiong, Little White Pig, and Black Feather Deity, could not enter the flower garden. As long as she came to the flower garden, she would be pushed away by an inexplicable force. Now that Yi Wuhui was a soul, she did not dare to force her way in. Otherwise, once her soul scattered, no one would be able to save her. Sigh. Yi Wuhui let out another long sigh and said to himself, Sumo, when are you coming back? If you are here, you might be able to save him. Yi Wuhui missed Sumo very much, but did not think that the cultivator in white in front of him was actually Sumo. However, Sumo had been reborn. In the end, Yi Wuhui had no choice but to fetch a bowl of ancient well water and bring it back to the stone house. At this moment, Sumo was still lying on the stone bed, exactly the same as before. If Sumo was more clear-headed, Yi Wuhui decided to give him some water to drink. Worship the heavens. Bow to the earth. At this moment, Sumo's dream was a beautiful scene. Boundless heaven continent, Tianmu grassland, ancient vine city. In Sumo's world, there was a sea of people, but Sumo could not see any of their faces clearly. His ears were filled with the singing of the praising students, and his voice could be heard by the heaven and earth. It was their wedding day. Xiao Luo and Wu, who were dressed in red, knelt while holding hands. Thousands of years of waiting, thousands of years of reincarnation. From the desolate sea to Azura, from Azura to the heaven continent. They were finally together. That was Xiao Luo and Wu Er's long-cherished wish to reincarnate. Xiao Luo's hands were slender and strong, very warm, Wu-Er's heart was as gentle as water, rippling. Such a dream filled Sumo's heart with joy. Even if it was a dream. Once a dream. Whether Xiao Luo was a human or a demon, whether everything he did was right or wrong, it had nothing to do with Wu-Er's love. Wu-Er loved Xiao Luo for no reason. Everything was so simple. Kneeling to the heavens and earth, without regret or resentment. The applause was thunderous, like the sea and the tide. At that moment there were tears in Wu-Er's eyes, and there were also tears in Sumo's eyes. Because he knew that Wu-Er had waited for too long, too hard, too tired. This wedding was the best gift. However, the moment they got married, blood flowed like a river. The red clothes on their bodies seemed to be the color of blood. But, at that moment of happiness, perhaps it could resolve the pain of a lifetime. Wu-Er! Wu-Er! Sumo whispered softly. Whoosh, whoosh, Sumo's dream began to jump. His divine soul also began to tremble. Inside the stone house, Yu-Wu-Hui saw Sumo's closed eyes begin to tremble. In the dream, Sumo saw Xiao Luo completely engulfed in red flames. In the void, there were two coffins facing each other. The third coffin swept up endless red flames. The divine coffin's flames. Xiao Luo was trapped in a sea of fire, unable to extricate himself. Xiao Luo, there was a cry of alarm in the void. Sumo's heart twitched. Back then, in the Battle of the Tianmu Plains, the 7 star lords of the Taihuang region had died. Therefore, among everyone present, the only person who truly cared about Xiao Luo was Wu. Thousands of murderous intent. Everyone fell silent. That heart-wrenching cry was something Sumo would not forget even after 100 reincarnations. Boom! Thousands of plum blossoms flew toward the fire like moths. But they instantly turned into smoke. The 5 plum blossoms could not get close to Xiao Luo at all. The power of the divine coffin surged, and Wu-Er spat out a mouthful of blood. The wedding dress was stained with blood. Wu-Er smiled sadly. She quickly formed a life and death seal. In an instant, a pendant on her neck glowed with a green light. That was the last essence of the Heaven Continents Wood clan. Suddenly, the green light protected her. Whoosh! The true body of the plum blossom fairy rushed into the sea of flames of the divine coffin without hesitation. Wu-Er! Sumo looked at everything in the dream, and his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. That scene had appeared in his memory countless times. The divine coffin turned into a sea of flames and engulfed Xiao Luo. The power of the divine coffin could burn the world. How could the plum blossom fairy resist it? Whether it was a demon or an immortal, their love was as deep as one. There was nothing wrong with love. Xiao Luo shocked the 3 realms, and he was indeed very cute. But the plum blossom fairy fell in love with a man who had been abandoned by fate. The flames of the divine coffin buried everything. The plum blossom fairy rushed toward Xiao Luo, and the green light protecting her had already dissipated. Wu-Er! Xiao Luo emitted a black light and caught Wu-Er. But the power of the divine coffin had already exhausted Wu. On her red dress, the plum blossoms were scattered, but the fragrance still lingered. Sumo knew that was Wu-Er's last soul. Wu-Er had once risked her life for him. Tears rolled down Xiao Luo's face as he hugged Wu-Er. The demon's tears did not fall easily, and the demon's hand was trembling slightly. Why, Wu-Er? He can't kill me. Wu-Er smiled gently, but it was also sad. Xiao Luo, I am your bride. Thank you for this wedding. No matter right or wrong, I love you. Wu-Er's smile was as bright as a flower. She had her own happiness. Xiao Luo, I just want to die in your arms. Wu-Er! Xiao Luo knew that everything was irreversible, and he choked with sobs. At this moment, Sumo's vision had changed to that of Xiao Luo. Wu-Er was lying in his arms. Sumo's hand was trembling slightly. Wu-Er! Sumo felt like he had returned to the past. He saw Wu-Er die in his arms once again. It was like cutting open the wound of the past. Who didn't want to hold his hand until his hair was covered with frost? Who didn't want to hold his son's heart until the end of time? The plum blossom spirit's 3 souls were extinguished and turned into dust. No, this was a dream. This was a dream of the past. Sumo tried his best to calm himself down. However, Wu Er's hand gradually turned cold. Dream, this is a dream. Sumo kept reminding himself. On the stone bed, Sumo's body trembled uncontrollably. In the dream. Gradually, Sumo felt Wu Er's hand warming up. However, Wu Er was long gone. At this moment, Sumo was holding the hand of a woman in black. Mu Jinghong. Senior Sister Mu. Sumo was surprised and could not help but call out softly. Mu Jinghong frowned slightly and said shyly, Why? My hand is not as good as Wu Er's? No. Sumo quickly denied. Why? Xiao Luo, my hand is not as good as Senior Sister Mu's? Plum Blossom Wu Er's voice echoed in the room. No. Sumo did not know how to answer. A green figure dressed in black. Plum Blossom Wu Er and Mu Jinghong appeared in Sumo's mind at the same time. They were angry and laughing, sad and happy. The 2 of them were separated at times and one at other times. They seemed to be mocking Sumo. Sumo felt like she was going to burst from the pain. One moment, he was Xiao Luo and the next he was Sumo. How many times had she been through life and death? Meow, a raccoon's howl reverberated in Sumo's mind. Her past and present lives were a blur. Chapter 641. If there was reincarnation, there must be a past life and a present life. Who could say for sure which one was the real one? Sumo's dream was a struggle between life and death. At this moment, his sea of consciousness was in chaos. The cat's cry was shrill and ear-piercing, echoing in the dream. They were more like the claws of a cat, scratching at his heart. Bloody grooves, one after another. Wu Er Senior Sister Mu on the stone bed, Sumo's body trembled uncontrollably. He gritted his teeth and screamed at the same time. No one else could understand that kind of pain and suffering. His face had turned from red and white to gray and purple, and his lips were ashen. Bean-sized beads of sweat rolled down from his forehead. Yi Wu Hui was not an ordinary cultivator. She had seen life and death many times. In her memory, she had seen the destruction of many worlds. In the past, Bu Miaotian's methods could be said to be extremely cruel, and Bu Wuhui's cruelty was even more unbearable. However, those did not make Yi Wuhui afraid. But she did not know why, when she saw this unfamiliar cultivator in white rolling on the stone bed and wailing, she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. Fellow Taoist! Fellow Taoist! Yi Wuhui formed a seal with both hands. She really wanted to use her technique to calm the white-robed cultivator in front of her, but it was all in vain. Sumo's hands had already scratched the stone bed, leaving bloody marks. Wu Er, Senior Sister Mu. Sumo only repeated these 2 names. However, Yi Wuhui didn't know who he was referring to. However, Yi Wuhui knew that Sumo must be in extreme pain. The poison of the 9-tailed civet cat was eroding Sumo's soul. In the dream, Sumo's world changed again. The appearance of Plum Blossom 5 finally disappeared completely. Then, Sumo saw Mu Jinghong. However, Mu Jinghong's appearance was constantly changing. She was dressed in black and then in red. Sometimes far, sometimes close, and sometimes distant. 5 Wheels Northern Region. Sumo saw herself fleeing in panic. Behind him, there were countless murderous auras. There seemed to be sword lights rising from several li away. There seemed to be spells being cast from several li away. There seemed to be magical treasures being cast from several li away. Sumo was the target of public criticism. That year, when he returned from the punishing Heart Cliff, he was being hunted down by his fellow disciples. A black figure suddenly appeared. Her black robes fluttered in the wind like a god of death. Tianluan. Heavenly annihilation. Mu Jinghong put his palms together and raised them above his head. Her perfect figure was undoubtedly revealed. At that moment, Mu Jinghong was like a black swan spreading its wings. At that moment, Mu Jinghong was like a beautiful god of death. However, she had come to protect Sumo. In an instant, an endless wave of light formed around her, spreading out like waves. Boom, hua, a destructive aura suddenly spread out. Within a radius of several dozen li, a great force seemed to suddenly sweep up, like a tidal wave, completely unstoppable. It was a spell that attacked indiscriminately. There were countless howls, countless spiritual lights rippling. All the cultivators were killed by Mu Jinghong. Mu Jinghong was like a mountain, blocking all the wind and rain. All the battles of life and death, all the bitter wind and rain. Senior Sister Mu, Sumo murmured in the dream. That was the first time in his life that he felt touched and warm from Mu Jinghong. Sumo, do you still remember the oath you made on the 5 wheels? Sumo would never dare to forget. Back then, Senior Sister Mu guided me into the sect. I swore on my Tao heart that once I entered the inner sect, I would be Senior Sister Mu's servant for 3 years. As a servant, you need to offer a drop of soul blood. If you break the promise within 3 years, I can kill you with just a thought. Senior Sister Mu, that day you guided me into the sect. Sumo would never dare to forget the promise of 3 years. Today, Senior Sister Mu came from thousands of li away to kill and save me. Otherwise, I, Sumo, would have already turned into ashes. There is no way I can repay this kindness. In the future, if anything happens, Sumo is willing to go through fire and knives for Senior Sister Mu, regardless of life or death. In the dream, Sumo flicked her finger, and the drop of soul blood flew toward Mu Jinghong. Sumo, I'll give you one chance to regret it. If you regret it now, it's not too late. Mu Jinghong's voice was low, and his expression was calm. Senior Sister Mu, I don't regret it. Sumo looked at her other self and replied to Mu Jinghong. At the same time, she replied in her heart, whether you are Wu or Senior Sister Mu, I don't regret it. In both lives, Xiao Luo and Sumo were one. Mu Jinghong did not want the drop of soul blood. She reached out and slapped the drop of soul blood back into Sumo's forehead. The drop of soul blood was bright red like agate. Sumo, remember, you can't give your soul blood to anyone easily. Not even me. Never leave your life in the hands of others. Sumo, I believe in you. I don't need the soul blood to prove it. In the dream, Mu Jinghong was the same as that day. She smiled sweetly and turned around. That black dress flew away like the wind, drifting away like the cloud. Senior Brother Lu, take good care of my servant. If Sumo loses a single hair, I, Mu Jinghong, will trample Windwheel Mountain. Mu Jinghong turned into a cloud and left, but his voice echoed throughout 5 wheels. At the same time, it echoed in Sumo's dream. That day Mu Jinghong was enough. The memories flowed and the dream continued. If anyone wants to kill Sumo, defeat my sword if you have the ability. Otherwise, anyone who dares to kill Sumo will be my mortal enemy. Mu Jinghong's tone was cold. Sumo, come with me. Mu Jinghong's tone was resolute. I'm here and Sumo is here. Sumo, if there's a chance, charge out of the formation and go straight to Silent Death Valley. Don't worry about me. Sumo, go. Mu Jinghong was already at the end of his tether. Mu Jinghong's words appeared intermittently in Sumo's dream. Those words were not spoken in a single place, but they ran through the 5 wheels of Sumo and Mu Jinghong's past. Sumo did not understand why he would fall into such a dream. At this time, the cats stopped meowing. Whoosh, everything in the dream changed again. Outside Silent Death Valley, Sumo saw Mu Jinghong like a demon, wearing a red robe and disheveled hair. The endless red sand blotted out the sun and the sky. That was Mu Jinghong's most terrifying appearance. Sumo's heart tightened, because he felt that he would come back to life and death. As expected, his dream changed. He was already at the foot of Windwheel Mountain. There was still no one from 5 wheels or White Bones. In the dream, there was only Mu Jinghong and him. That was the final battle between white bones and 5 wheels. Red dust. Destroy. Mu Jinghong shouted and swept up the endless red dust. Boundless secular world, invincible. Whoosh, rustle. Amidst the sound of the wind, the red sand covered the entire Windwheel mountain range. Furthermore, it was an indiscriminate attack. Wherever the red sand passed, no life was spared, not even a blade of grass or a tree. Because the entire Windwheel 8 peaks had already been razed to the ground. Wherever the red sand passed, everything died. Sumo remembered that the Windwheel 8 disciples had already melted into the red sand. That was the scene that Sumo did not want to see the most. But now, Sumo understood that his 8 senior brothers had already returned to Windwheel. Senior sister Mu did not kill them at all. Everything was just a trap. The Wheel of Wind was a supreme existence. Kakik, kakik, Mu Jinghong laughed in the red sand, his red hair flying wildly as if he had gone mad. Mu Jinghong, I will kill you! Sumo slowly stood up from the Windwheel 9th peak, her eyes bloodshot. Mu Jinghong, why must you do this? Sumo questioned. Kakik. Sumo, why must you do this? Mu Jinghong sneered as he looked at Sumo. Isn't Windwheel the most important person in your heart? Now that I have killed them, what can you do about it? Kakik. Your 7th senior sister is as beautiful as a flower. Kakik. What you like, what you love, I'm going to destroy them all. I am the White Bone Darkseed, and I am the White Bone Witch. Are you satisfied with this answer? Mu Jinghong was like a demon. There is no right or wrong in this world, as long as it does not go against my heart. If I want it, I will do it. I, Mu Jinghong, do not care about right or wrong. Love comes and goes, why should I care about the past? Sumo had never forgotten Mu Jinghong's words, but even now, Sumo did not understand why. She only remembered that Mu Jinghong was sincerely seeking death. That was because Sumo did not even have the right to fight Mu Jinghong. Sumo, give me your life. Mu Jinghong's aura suddenly soared into the sky, holding the black sword in his hand. His red robe was like the clouds, and the black light was like ink. Go! Sumo's broken bamboo pole shot into the sky. The green light shot up and the black light fell. Boom! The broken bamboo pole and the black sword clashed, creating layers of ripples that spread out like waves. Mu Jinghong's red robe fluttered, and Sumo's green robe fluttered. In the void, the 2 people, one above and one below, stared at each other. However, one was holding a black sword, and the other was holding a bamboo pole. Their gazes were very special. Love and hate, cold and warm, they knew everything. At the intersection of reincarnation, they faced each other with death for the love in their hearts. Sumo, my love, please forget my demon-like appearance. Mu Jinghong, who was filled with killing intent and as cold as ice, smiled sweetly and said softly. At that moment, Sumo's heart suddenly ached, just like in the past. Senior sister Mu. On the stone bed, Sumo panted heavily, rolling left and right. Yi Wuhui's brows were tightly knitted. She instinctively held onto Sumo's hand. Unfortunately, she was only a soul. In the dream, the water-like black sword in Mu Jinghong's hand suddenly turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared. At the same time, her body fell rapidly. Her red robe fell irrevocably. Pft! Sumo's bamboo pole directly pierced through Mu Jinghong's immortal heart. Senior sister Mu. Senior sister Mu. Both Sumo in the dream and Sumo on the stone bed were trembling. Why did the person he loved have to die by his hand twice? Sumo, I want to go home. I want to return to the sea of stars. I want to return to the planet that belongs to us. I want to sit under the plum tree with you. Then I'll give you. Only when I die by your hand will you remember who I am. It's very obedient. I'll take everything else with me. Mu Jinghong smiled. At that moment, her lower body actually started to disappear. It was an extremely unique way to die. Sumo, I'll wait for you in the reincarnation cycle. You'll meet me again. No, Sumo on the stone bed screamed. Blood was already flowing out of his pitch-black eyes. Senior Sister Mu, Sumo's body couldn't stop trembling. I know who you are. I know who you are. You don't have to die. Wooer, rolling, screaming, and pain from the soul. That kind of pain made Sumo unable to extricate herself. In the dream, Sumo relived everything. The sky was filled with plum blossoms. Scattered into the mud and crushed into dust, only the fragrance remained. Her body was gone, so where was her soul? Meow, the ear-piercing meow of a cat sounded again. Wah! Sumo turned over and spat out a mouthful of blackish-purple blood. Black blood dripped from under the stone bed. At that moment, a cultivator in blue finally appeared in her dream. He, with his back facing Sumo, stood on a roulette with his hands behind his back. Chapter 642. Wah! Sumo spat out a mouthful of blood and almost fell off the bed. At that moment, Yi Wuhui was at a loss of what to do. Such a panicked expression rarely appeared on Yi Wuhui's face. With a wave of her hand, Yi Wuhui once again placed Sumo on the stone bed. Then, she used a spell to wipe away the blood at the corner of Sumo's mouth. Fellow Taoist! Yi Wuhui called out in a low voice. But Sumo didn't respond to her at all. Breathe in, breathe in. After spitting out 2 mouthfuls of black blood, Sumo seemed to have calmed down a little. Although his breathing was still heavy, he was no longer tossing and turning. Sumo seemed to have entered a second, relatively calmer stage. However, Yi Wuhui's eyebrows were knitted tightly. Because right now, the area between Sumo's eyebrows had turned black, a sign that the poison had deepened. Sumo's beautiful face was like a frosted autumn leaf, grayish-brown, cold, and curled. Amu. At that moment, Sumo called out a name that shocked Yi Wuhui. Mu. That was a name that any cultivator related to the 3 realms would know. Amu was the god of creation in the 3 realms galaxy. Of course, Yi Wuhui had never met Amu, but she had many legends about Amu. Holy Father Amu? Yi Wuhui frowned as he looked at the white-clothed Sumo, deep in thought. Is this cultivator from the 3 realms galaxy? Otherwise, why would he call out Amu's name in his dream? Beautiful as a demon. Yi Wuhui's countenance changed abruptly. A dream. Wu-er. Senior Sister Mu. Sumo was panting. He felt as if there was a huge rock pressing down on his chest, and his surroundings were chaotic, making it difficult for him to breathe or hear. I will definitely save you, Sumo said to herself. I know you are in the dust net 3 stars. Once the Pure Land is stable, I'll go look for you. In the dream, Sumo gritted her teeth. However, the ear-piercing meows of the cats continued to reverberate. Sumo felt a splitting headache and her heart felt like it was being bitten by ants. Meow. Every meow was gnawing at Sumo's heart. Sumo really wanted to get rid of that strange meow. However, he could not get rid of it. The more he did not want to hear the cat meowing, the more shrill it seemed. Who can help me? Who can save me? In Sumo's sea of consciousness, thousands of waves were surging. At this moment, a green-robed figure suddenly appeared. His body emitted a faint radiance. He stood in Sumo's dreamland, as if he had been there since the beginning of time. There was a roulette under his feet. The roulette was black and white, and there were 9 scales on it, which were exceptionally obvious. Heaven, earth, human, god, Buddha, ghost, demon, immortal, and demon, 9 ancient seal characters, faintly flashed. The green-robed man stood on the roulette. At this moment, the world instantly became peaceful. As soon as he appeared, he seemed to control everything. The meowing of the cats stopped abruptly. Between heaven and earth, clarity was restored. That kind of peace was indescribable. Sumo's state of mind instantly calmed down. Amu. Sumo's heart shook. In his dreamland, Amu was the only cultivator with a clear face, other than Wu-er and Mu Jinghong. Amu's appearance calmed everything. At this moment, AMU had already turned around. AMU was still the same AMU. There was a faint smile on his face. That smile was extremely warm. "Sumo, it's been a long time," AMU said with a smile. AMU. Sumo did not dare to believe his eyes. Even though he sometimes felt that he was in a dream, AMU's appearance in his dreamland was still a little special. "AMU, weren't you sealed in the Glaze realm?" "Who said that?" AMU asked. "The white-robed guardian king told me," Sumo answered. He. AMU shook his head lightly, but did not deny it. "Sumo, don't worry about where I am, because I have always been with you." "You have always been with me." Sumo was a little confused. "Where are you?" "I am in the three realms. I have always been in all things related to the three realms." AMU looked around. "For example, I have always been in your sea of consciousness." "My sea of consciousness?" Sumo frowned, not quite understanding. "Sumo, you and I are both the lotus souls of the three realms." AMU smiled. "You should understand that in a sense, you are me, and I am you." The karma wheel beneath AMU's feet began to expand rapidly. Boundless light spread to Sumo's feet. In that instant, Sumo's body trembled. A karma wheel had appeared beneath his feet as well. However, on AMU's side there were 9 lines, while on Sumo's side there was a black and white light. Karma wheel, positive and negative. Meow. At that moment, another cat's meow sounded. Plum Blossom Five's and Mu Jinghong's voices sounded at the same time. One was dressed in green, the other in red, but their faces were covered in blood. Meow. The cat's meow suddenly became shrill. In that instant it was as if someone had chopped off the cat's tail. 2 blood-red eyes appeared behind Plum Blossom Five's and Mu Jinghong's backs, flickering in and out of existence. It was extremely demonic. In that instant, Sumo felt the karma wheel beneath his feet shake violently. "AMU," Sumo instinctively called out. "I'm here." AMU replied in a clear voice. AMU's figure became clear once more, and the meow disappeared once more. Plum Blossom Five's and Mu Jinghong's figures also disappeared completely. Sumo bent over, staring at the karma wheel beneath his feet as he panted heavily. "I've been poisoned." Sumo forced himself to raise his head. He smiled bitterly at AMU. "A demonic poison from the hidden world." "I know." AMU nodded. "That seems to be a cat demon. It caused the inner demons in your soul to spread endlessly. Is Plum Blossom Five your inner demons? Or is Senior Sister Mu your inner demons?" AMU asked. Sumo shook his head. It was not a denial, but he did not know. "AMU, actually, you should be my inner demons." After a while, Sumo raised his head and forced a smile. "For tens of thousands of years, I've always wanted to surpass you or change you. I want to reincarnate and you want eternal life. Defeat you and change you. That was the only thing I did in my previous life." He. AMU could not help but nod and laugh. "That's right. That makes sense. Then how should I detoxify it?" Sumo asked. "Actually, that cat demon did not find your weakness." AMU smiled. "Otherwise, I would not be able to appear in your sea of consciousness. Plum Blossom Five's your love and concern, and I am your true inner demon." Meow, meow. At this moment the meow sounded again. At the same time, on the other side of Sumo, a black AMU appeared. Under his feet there was a black coffin. Black fog billowed, and demonic chi soared to the sky. At that moment, AMU's aura was exactly the same as in Sumo's memory. The former AMU was his mortal enemy. However, when Sumo looked at the black AMU, she could not help but smile faintly. "Unfortunately, you're too late." The green AMU on the roulette laughed. Looking again, he raised his right hand and pointed with his index finger. Chi chi chi. A ray of green light shot out and hit the black-clothed AMU. Boom! The black-robed AMU didn't even have time to do anything before he dissipated. Meow, at the place where he disappeared, a nine-tailed black cat instantly appeared and then disappeared. Sumo, fight a demon with a demon. You can be free. The green AMU smiled. I have a Tao technique for you to comprehend. If you comprehend it, you can solve today's problem. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 643. Samsara of the Ichizo applies for a late update. Currently in the middle of typing, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 644. Sumo. Sumo, inside the stone house, Yiwuhue called out anxiously. At this moment, she already understood that the beautiful male cultivator in white in front of her was Sumo. Amu, who was as beautiful as a demon and came from the three realms. Then this cultivator in white must be the underworld lord. And Sumo was the underworld lord. In this way, everything was clear. It could also explain why this cultivator in white would break into the cave abode of the soul storage altar, and why he knew Yiwuhue. And knowing that the cultivator in white in front of her was Sumo, Yiwuhue became even more nervous and anxious. At this moment, the area between Sumo's eyebrows had completely turned black. The poison of the nine-tailed civet cat was getting worse. At this moment, it seemed that Sumo had calmed down a little, but his aura was still very weak. Yiwuhue did not know how many days had passed, but Sumo's poison did not show any signs of subsiding. What should I do? Yiwuhue's eyes were tightly locked. Since the cultivator in front of her was Sumo, she definitely could not sit back and watch. However, Yiwuhue did not have a way to cure the poison, and she did not know how to get out of the cave abode of the soul storage altar. Sumo! Yiwuhue picked up the stone bowl next to him and reluctantly let Sumo drink the bowl of ancient well water. Fortunately, although Sumo was not sober, he drank the bowl of water. Phew! Yiwuhue let out a long breath. After all, that was a bowl of immortal water. At present, Sumo was indeed at his most stable state. Because he no longer shouted in his sleep, nor did he struggle left and right. His aura was weak, but it was still stable. Yiwuhue left the stone house and looked at the flower garden again. There were indeed a few immortal herbs in the flower garden that could treat injuries of the soul. But how could he get in? Yiwuhue tried to approach the flower bed again. However, when she was 3 feet away from the flower bed, a gentle force pushed her away. It happened 3 times in a row. Yiwuhue raised his eyebrows. On the 4th time, she lunged forward. Chi. Although she had increased her strength, the power of the backlash had also increased. Moreover, a wisp of green smoke rose from Yiwuhue's soul. Yiwuhue raised his eyebrows again. Because a burning sensation instantly came over. At that moment, she felt her entire soul tremble slightly, as if a mortal was being roasted by fire. At this moment, if she were to force her way through, she would definitely be reduced to ashes. In fact, if she could turn into ashes in exchange for Sumo's life, she would be willing to do so. However, the key point was that she couldn't save Sumo by rushing in. What should we do? Yiwuhue looked at the flower bed and bit his lower lip. She didn't know what Sumo had experienced, but Sumo narrowly escaped back to the cave residence. She absolutely could not watch Suemo die in front of her. Her thoughts turned quickly. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. Immediately, she formed a seal with her hand, and Sumo flew out of the stone house. Suemo, let me borrow your body for a moment. Yiwuhue smiled slightly. At this moment, she was a soul. As long as she attached herself to Sumo's body, she should be able to rush into the flower bed. Because the flower bed would not stop Sumo. Whoosh! Yiwuhue's soul moved and directly flew into the space between Sumo's eyebrows. Dream. I have a Tao technique for you to comprehend. If you comprehend it, you can solve today's problem. Amu's words shocked Sumo. Amu, what technique? Sumo asked. Heh heh. It can only be understood, but not explained. Mu laughed. You have to look carefully at my technique. As he spoke, she looked at Mu's hands. He gently separated them in the air, and moved them left and right, sketching. Forbidden painting. Sumo's eyes narrowed slightly. The forbidden painting technique came from Wang Ju. Within the three realms, Wang Ju was number one in terms of forbidden paintings, and the only person who had inherited it was Mu. It could be said that other than the 9 coffins, Mu's most powerful technique was probably the forbidden painting. What Mu was demonstrating was the forbidden painting technique. Sumo, the forbidden painting is also a secret technique of the 3 realms. Mu looked at Sumo meaningfully. And your source is the supreme of the 3 realms. So, it is not difficult for you. Whoosh, whoosh, Mu's figure moved slightly, but the seals in front of him had already filled the sky. Sumo could see every single one of the 990 seals clearly. Under Mu's control, they were constantly evolving. This evolution was the greatest secret of the forbidden painting. This was because every cultivator's deduction would be different. Different combinations of seals could transform into many different techniques. In a sense, the combinations of the forbidden paintings were limitless. Sumo stared at the sky full of forbidden paintings. In fact, he had seen Mu's forbidden painting technique more than once. However, this time, they were not fighting each other, so he had the chance to take a closer look. Whoosh, whoosh, in an instant, the roulette under Mu's feet was replaced by a clock. On the clock, there were mountains, rivers, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The 2 huge needles spun rapidly. Every time they changed, it represented a change in time. Forbidden time. That was Mu's strongest forbidden painting technique. Back then, Shao Heavenly Court had died under this technique. During the Battle of the Sacred Mountain, Mu had used this technique to speed up time, allowing Ling Yu to advance to the Eternal Realm. Controlling time was also controlling everything. Sumo understood this very well. However, the forbidden time was not something he could learn, because it was Mu's forbidden painting technique. Although Wang Ju had taught Mu the forbidden painting technique, Mu could not set up Wang Ju's great restriction of heaven and earth. Conversely, Wang Ju could not deduce Mu's forbidden time. Every forbidden diagram was a result of their own great enlightenment. The clock under Mu's feet began to spin. At that moment, the entire world was under Mu's control. Sumo, look. Mu smiled. At the same time, the seals in his hands changed. A few rays of light instantly appeared on the clock. Whoosh, there seemed to be wind. Wu Aaron Green stood at a corner of the clock with a warm smile, holding a plum blossom staff. Mu Jinghong in black held a sword with one hand, his expression cold. Mu Jinghong in red. His red robe fluttered, sending red sand flying. Previous life, present life. At the same time, the white-robed Xiao Luo, the black-robed Murong Huang, and the peerless Netherlord sitting cross-legged on the Black Marsh White Island appeared on the wheel. They were all Sumo. Mu's forbidden painting seemed to be building a new world within the world, and in the world, he was recreating time. The ripples of time spread out layer by layer. At different nodes, as long as Mu was willing, he could make everything appear, or he could return to that node in time. The wonders of the forbidden painting were incomparable. Sumo was dazzled, and her soul trembled. Sumo, did you see it clearly? Mu stopped his deduction and looked at Sumo with a smile. I saw it clearly. Sumo nodded. Did you remember it? I remembered it. Did you comprehend anything? Mu asked again. Not yet. Sumo shook her head. Mu nodded, then he sat cross-legged on the clock. There's no hurry. You can slowly comprehend it. I'll wait for you here. Sumo nodded, sat cross-legged, and closed her eyes. Chapter 645. In the dream, there was no concept of time. Sumo closed his eyes. In his perception, everything was still. In his consciousness, there seemed to be only endless runes circulating. It was an incomparably marvelous feeling. In the dream, there seemed to be another dream. However, Sumo did not know that the moment he closed his eyes, Mu's figure had disappeared. 999 seals flickered in and out of Sumo's mind, disappearing and reappearing. The black cat's cry did not appear again. In Sumo's world, there was no other noise. Whoosh, whoosh, those runes appeared and died and came back to life. In the midst of the changes and disillusionment, Sumo once again saw countless plum blossoms. They scattered in the void, sometimes transforming into Wu-er, sometimes into Mu Jinghong. However, they gathered into shape and dispersed into Qi, changing in an instant. Mu wanted him to comprehend, but Sumo was really at a loss. What should he comprehend? He had seen Wang Ju's forbidden diagram technique. Even in the 3 realms, without the 9 coffins, he did not have the confidence to win against Wang Ju's forbidden diagram. It was an inexhaustible and profound technique. He had also seen Mu's forbidden diagram technique. That technique that could change time was almost unparalleled. Whether it was eternity or instant, they were all under Mu's control. But what could Sumo control? Countless runes flowed in Sumo's mind like a river. However, they did not follow any pattern. They were like a plate of loose sand in Sumo's consciousness, and could not be deduced at all. Those runes could not form a forbidden diagram. However, Sumo still kept his composure, trying his best to control every strand of his consciousness to focus on the runes. Dreams had no length. They could be stretched indefinitely, seemingly unrestrained by anything. Thus, Sumo did not know how long he had been sitting cross-legged. 1 day, 2 days, 1 year, 2 years? Sumo sat there cross-legged like a mountain. He had completely forgotten the concept of time. Most importantly, this kind of forgetting had almost no effect on him. In a daze, Sumo actually completely forgot about the time here. At that moment, his heart skipped a beat. If my heart doesn't move, can I transcend time? At the thought of this, Sumo opened her eyes abruptly. Looking again, Mu was still sitting cross-legged in front of him, just like before. What? Mu asked. Mu, I can actually escape from your forbidden time, Sumo said. How do we escape? Mu was rather interested. If there is no time in one's heart, then there is no time, Sumo said with a smile. Ha ha. Mu couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, Sumo, you're right in theory. But, how many people have actually done it? Who can ignore the passage of time in the forbidden land of time? Wouldn't it be too easy to solve everything by simply ignoring it? Actually, that's just fooling yourself. With that, Mu waved a hand. Whoosh, the hands of the clock beneath his feet began to spin rapidly. Looking again, the sun, moon, and stars suddenly appeared in the entire world. Then, spring, summer, autumn, and winter appeared, and the alternation of day and night appeared. Sumo's expression remained calm as he watched the scene unfold before him. Amu looked at his expression and nodded his head lightly. Whoosh, his hand seals changed again. Looking again, a vigorous plum blossom tree appeared in the forbidden land of time. Instantly, a green-robed granny appeared next to it. The granny's face was wrinkled, her hair was white, and her body was slightly hunched. The plum blossom staff in her hand was dry. The beauty was past her prime. Wooer! Sumo raised an eyebrow. Since there is no eternity in this world, then nothing can walk out of the millstone of time in one piece. One day your Wu-er's face will also be filled with sorrow. Within time, there is no escape. It can grind everything to pieces. How can you remain indifferent to the changes of the worlds? Won't you become a walking corpse if you seal yourself and don't move? Amu looked at Sumo with a smile. He seemed to be waiting for Sumo's answer. Sumo frowned at the decaying plum blossom tree, remaining silent for a long time. Within time, there is no escape. It can grind everything to pieces. Sumo heard Amu's words loud and clear. Moreover, those words made sense. But Sumo knew there must be another way. Whoosh, whoosh, the surrounding seals rose and fell. Amu's forbidden land of time seemed to be invulnerable. It was a near-perfect technique. How to escape from time? That was a question that many cultivators wanted to solve. Sumo stared at the decaying plum blossom tree and the old Wu. In fact, Sumo knew that it was the future that was hastened by Amu's forbidden land of time. But he wanted to get rid of it all. Amu was right. It didn't mean that time would not exist if you didn't have it in your heart, because no matter what you did, time would always be there. At this moment, Sumo's heart suddenly moved. There seemed to be some kind of guidance in the dark. He stood up. Seeing him stand up, Amu couldn't help but reveal a smile on his face. Because Sumo might have really comprehended something. Sumo lowered his head and looked at his feet. Layers of ripples flowed under his feet. Those were the traces of time. Those traces of time even covered his karma roulette. Karma would also be crushed. Sumo watched as they flowed under his feet, then gradually moved away and even disappeared. Whoosh, as the ripples spread, the decaying plum blossom tree and the old Wu flowed away from his side. Then, they went further and further away and finally turned into dust. Boom! At that moment, a muffled thunder exploded in Sumo's mind. Then, Sumo's footsteps moved slightly. He suddenly took a step forward and stepped on the stream of time. Whoosh! When he looked again, the scenery in front of him had completely changed. In front of him was an extremely lush plum tree that was blooming with flowers. And at this moment, the green-clothed Wu under the plum tree was still beautiful, standing tall. Not far away, Amu was still sitting cross-legged, not moving at all. And the distance between Sumo and Amu hadn't changed at all. Sumo's mouth curved. I'm not chasing after time. With that, Sumo's footsteps moved again. Whoosh! When he looked again, he returned to the moment when Amu transformed into the plum tree and whoosh. The distance between him and Amu still hadn't changed. Sumo's eyes were filled with endless light. Then, the footwork under his feet changed rapidly. And with every step he took, the scenery in his eyes was changing. One step, one scenery that was very similar to his 49 step. Sumo's footsteps became faster and faster. Finally, in his eyes, many plum trees, many Wu and even many Amu appeared. Every wisp of time was a world. Amu. Sumo suddenly stopped. I've understood. What did you understand? Amu asked. It's space. Sumo said, time and space are one. In different spaces their time was naturally different. To break through time, one can only travel through different spaces. That is equivalent to cutting off time. Time and space reincarnation. Sumo said firmly, it can solve many things. Whoosh! The seal under Sumo's feet suddenly turned into a forbidden diagram. Ah! And at this moment, Amu couldn't help but laugh loudly when he heard that. With that laughter, Amu's figure gradually disappeared. At the same time, at the place where Amu disappeared, a lotus actually appeared. Chapter 646. Time and Space Reincarnation. At that moment, Sumo was enlightened. The runes under his feet emitted endless light, and then dispersed layer by layer. They began Sumo's deduction. 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets 10,000 worlds. The forbidden map under Sumo's feet sparkled and rippled. In every light there was a Sumo. In every light there was a world. That was the wonder of the forbidden map. Amu! Amu! Sumo saw Amu disappear. Thus, he shouted loudly. However, in this space-time, there was no answer. Sumo raised his eyebrows. He took a step forward. The space he wanted to go to was the space where Amu was previously. Whoosh! However, Sumo took a step forward. He saw countless runes, the forbidden of time, and even the plum tree and Wu air. However, he did not see Amu. Sumo could not help but frown. How is this possible? Time had divided space into countless fragments, and these fragments connected to all of time. In this sense, time and space were originally one. Whether it was time or space, their changes would definitely be accompanied by changes in the other side. Time and space were inseparable. Amu and Sumo walked two different paths, but they reached the same goal. They could both change time and space. Sumo took a step forward on his forbidden map. In theory, he had returned to the previous moment. Amu should be here. However, Amu had disappeared. What was going on? Sumo looked around, his eyes confused. However, Sumo's eyes gradually brightened. Then, he laughed bitterly and shook his head. Then, he took another step back to the space-time where he started. Everything there seemed to have disappeared. There was no Amu, no forbidden map. There was only a lotus bud waiting to bloom. That was the mark left behind by Amu when he dissipated. It was a lotus that looked very ordinary. It was straight in the middle and straight on the outside, without any vines or branches. Its fragrance was far away and clear, and it was planted elegantly and cleanly. It had only one light. Accompanied by a few lotus leaves, the whole lotus swayed gently. Sumo stared at the lotus, and did not speak for a long time. Meow. At this moment, the black cat that had disappeared for a long time suddenly appeared. Its eyes were blood-red, its front claws were on the ground, its back arched, and it bared its teeth as if it was about to pounce forward. Meow. The black cat raised its head and howled at Sumo. This time, Sumo saw clearly that the black cat had 9 tails. 9-tailed cat demon? 9 lives. Sumo couldn't help but sneer. Because he thought of the black-clothed bamboo hat cultivator he fought before. He finally understood why the black-robed cultivator had 9 clones. The Izong demon clan is indeed powerful. Suemo stared at the black cat. A tiny civet cat nearly took my life. However, your poison is useless against me. Whoosh! Sumo's hands were drawing in the air. In an instant, many runes appeared. They gathered at Sumo's feet and turned into a 5-colored forbidden map. Hiss! Meow! At this moment, the 9-tailed civet cat was furious and charged at Sumo. Its 9 tails instantly turned into 9 long whips and wrapped around Sumo. At the same time, its blood-red eyes emitted endless red light. Blood chi soared to the sky. In the dream, it still wanted to kill Sumo. Evil creature! Seal! Sumo shouted coldly and then raised his hand. The runes shook and the forbidden map rippled. In an instant, a 5-colored space appeared in front of him. Meow! The cat's cry stopped abruptly. Because it directly rushed into Sumo's space-time forbidden map. A 5-colored space-time plane was suspended in the air. In the plane, it was a squashed black cat. It was trapped in that space by Sumo's forbidden map. His 9 tails seemed to have been compressed into butterfly wings. Looking again, Suemo clenched his fist in the air. At the same time, he shouted in a low voice, "Break!" Boom! The space-time plane in the air suddenly dissipated. Thousands of fragments scattered in the air, like 5-colored stardust, overflowing with colorful light. Boom! Boom! As the space-time plane dissipated, Sumo's entire dream began to collapse. The entire world rumbled and was about to collapse. However, it started from the farthest point. Sumo looked into the distance. Smoke and dust were rolling in from all directions. The black cat was dead and the dream was gone. In fact, this dream was a world formed by Sumo under the stimulation of the cat poison. If he could not break it, then this world would exist forever until he died. But if he could break it, then this dream would disappear. The 4 poles disappeared and the surroundings gradually darkened. Sumo knew that this dream would disappear soon. At this time, there was only a space with a radius of tens of feet left. The surroundings were dark and gloomy. The lotus was still swaying. Suemo looked at the lotus and couldn't help but smile knowingly. Amu, thank you. In fact, it was you who made me comprehend a lotus art. Sumo sighed and said to herself, I know that you never appeared. But everything about you is indeed imprinted in my mind. In the end, it was your memory that made me create you in the dream and then break out of the cage. That's right. You are me, and I am you. Don't worry. Whether you are in the glaze realm or not, I will find you. For the 3 realms, for the galaxy. Sumo said and waved her hand. Whoosh, whoosh. The lotus rose in response, and then it landed in Sumo's palm before vanishing. However, a lotus imprint appeared in his palm. Lotus art. Space-time reincarnation was a true lotus art that belonged to Sumo. This was because every single lotus art would leave a mark on the cultivator's body. Boom! The last part of the world dissipated. Whoosh! The world in front of Sumo suddenly changed. It was a sea, and above the sea, there was a faint shadow of a lotus. Sea of consciousness. This was Sumo's true sea of consciousness. Before the black cat poison was cured, this place was completely sealed. Sumo could not perceive this space-time at all. At this time, the sky was clear and bright. Sumo took a deep breath. At this time, he could wake up at any time. But at this moment, a blue figure suddenly rushed out from the depths of the sea. It was a female cultivator in blue, wearing a string of purple wind chimes on her wrist. It was Yi Wuhue. At this time, her back was facing Sumo. She broke into Sumo's sea of consciousness with her soul body. It must be known that if there was a careless mistake, Yi Wuhue might be swallowed by Sumo. Sumo! Sumo! Yi Wuhue kept calling Sumo. Her back was facing Sumo, and in Sumo's sea of consciousness, she could not perceive the other's existence at all. But Sumo could hear the anxiety in Yi Wuhue's voice. Looking again, Yi Wuhue did not turn around, but directly formed a seal with both hands. She did not want to waste even a moment, because she knew that Sumo could not hold on any longer. At any time, Sumo's soul could be broken and she could die. Rise! Yi Wuhue shouted. Whoosh! Inside the stone house, Sumo's body suddenly bounced up under Yi Wuhue's technique. However, his eyes were still blank. After all, Sumo's soul had not really awakened. Sumo's body directly came out of the stone house. With one step, he walked towards the flower garden. Sure enough, without any obstruction, Sumo entered the flower garden. But in the sea of consciousness, Sumo saw it clearly. Boom, crack in the void, a green-gold lightning directly struck Yi Wuhue. Even in Sumo's soul, she could not escape the punishment. That was enough to turn Yi Wuhue into ashes. Miao Shu House. Chapter 647. The azure golden light came crashing down. Miss Yi Sumo's figure moved and went straight to Yi Wuhue. At the same time, he waved one hand and emitted a ray of light. 2 rays of light collided in the sky above the sea of consciousness. In an instant they dissipated at the same time. At the same time, Sumo stretched out her arms and held Yi Wuhue in her arms. Sumo! Yi Wuhue saw Sumo and couldn't help but feel sad and happy at the same time. He hugged Sumo tightly. In the sea of consciousness they were just 2 divine souls. It's okay. Sumo comforted him. No. Sumo, I want to save you. You've been poisoned by the 9-tailed civet cat and can't control yourself anymore. Yi Wuhue said, there are immortal herbs in the flower garden that can temporarily heal you. It's okay. Sumo smiled. The cat poison has been cured. Otherwise, how could you see me here? Really? Yi Wuhue was doubtful. At this time, he was still hugging Sumo tightly, unwilling to let go. Of course. Let's go. Sumo smiled and then moved with Yi Wuhue. In a trance, Yi Wuhue felt a flash of light in front of him. When he looked again, he had already left Sumo's sea of consciousness. And at this time, the white-robed Sumo stood beside him. They held hands and stood together in the flower garden. The black gas at the wound on Sumo's shoulder had completely dissipated. His complexion had also completely returned to normal. Her face, which was as beautiful as a demon, emitted a faint glow. The sumo in front of him was a little unfamiliar, but Yi Wuhui still couldn't control the excitement in his heart. Sumo. Yi Wuhui hugged Sumo again, and couldn't help crying tears of joy. Unfortunately, she was a divine soul and had no tears. Moreover, her arms directly slashed across Sumo's body. Because she was a soul, she could not hug Sumo at all. Although her hand was in Sumo's, they were only connected by light. Miss Yi, thank you. Sumo gently patted Yi Wuhui's illusory shoulder. If there's a next time, please don't take such a risk. If I hadn't woken up, you would have died in my sea of consciousness. That way, the loss outweighs the gain. Sumo. Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo very seriously. If I can't save you, I'm willing to die too. Yi Wuhui's gaze was firm. Back then, I said that if anything happened to you, I would risk my life to save you. But if I can't save him, so what if I die? Sumo looked at Yi Wuhui and finally nodded. Of course, she understood Yi Wuhui's feelings, but the kindness of a beauty was the hardest to bear. I won't die, and neither will you, Sumo said with a smile. Then, she took Yi Wuhui out of the flower bed. There was no prohibition outside the flower bed, so it was safe for Yi Wuhui. Sumo, you changed back to your appearance when you were in the Three Realms? Yi Wuhui asked curiously. It seems that many things have happened outside after I left this cave abode. Yes. Sumo nodded and then carefully told Yi Wuhui everything that had happened after she left the cave abode. The Battle of Tianfu, the rebirth of the Pure Land. Bu Xiyun had died. Bu Wuhui had been sealed. Bu Xingkong, the leader of the corpse-less sect in Dongyi Galaxy, had submitted to Sumo. All these results were beyond Yi Wuhui's imagination. As she listened, her mind was shaken, and her expression kept changing. However, the fact that Sumo was safe was her greatest comfort. Sumo, thank you for not killing my sister. In the end, Yi Wuhui let out a long sigh. Don't you want her to die? Sumo asked. She wanted to kill you. Yes. Yi Wuhui nodded. But we were born from the same root. Sumo smiled and didn't say anything else. Sumo didn't say much about the god puppet, nor did she ask any more questions. Between a cultivator and a puppet, who was the puppet? This question was actually very mysterious. There were many things that no one could explain. Bu Xiyun probably didn't know that she was a god puppet even when she died. People often said that no one could understand themselves. However, in fact, the person who couldn't understand the most was themselves. It was difficult to understand others, but it was even more difficult to understand oneself. Therefore, Sumo didn't want to leave the question of whether she was a god puppet to Yi Wuhui or not. Moreover, to Sumo, it wasn't important whether Yi Wuhui was a god puppet or not. What was important was that she was a friend that she could entrust her life to. Sumo didn't say anything more about the Battle of Tianfu. Instead, she walked directly to the immortal bathing ancient lotus. Now, the immortal bathing ancient lotus was already very high out of the water. The lotus leaves were like a field, and the lotus stem was straight. The lotus bud that was about to bloom was slightly raised, and it was very beautiful. Then, Sumo pointed with one hand. A green gas came out from the tip of her finger. To nurture the ancient lotus, there must be three soul energies: mortal soul chi, immortal soul chi, and reincarnation soul chi. Moreover, all the soul energies must be infused within 3,000 years. Otherwise, the ancient lotus would wither. He had already infused the mortal soul chi when Sumo was at the peak of the undead realm. Today, he infused the immortal soul chi, which was a soul energy that only reincarnation realm cultivators could retain in their bodies. A breeze blew, and the green gas directly infused into the flower bud. Looking again, the immortal lotus swayed and the water rippled. The lotus bud that was about to bloom actually began to bloom at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, the entire flower valley was filled with the fragrance of the lotus, which was refreshing. The white lotus petals bloomed layer by layer, and the stamens inside were like stars. Maybe it doesn't need 3,000 years. Sumo looked at the immortal bathing ancient lotus and smiled faintly. As long as I have enough cultivation, I can let it mature a little earlier and reforge your body. Yes. Yi Wuhui nodded. However, she looked at the lotus with a slightly complicated expression, because a thought flashed through her mind. She suddenly hoped that the immortal bathing ancient lotus would grow a little slower. Actually, it had been 1,000 years. However, for Yi Wuhui it was like an instant. She was willing to continue to stay like this with Sumo, even if she was in a deep sleep in Sumo's cosmos bag. Sumo did not pay attention to Yi Wuhui. Instead, she went back to the red spider lilies under the black cliff in the flower garden. There were still only 5 seeds of the red spider lilies that broke through the sky. The one that grew the fastest was still 3 inches tall. It seemed to be even more stubborn than the immortal bathing ancient lotus. Looking at the 5 seedlings, Sumo smiled knowingly. That kind of smile was extremely rare for him. Then, Sumo bent down. His right hand was slightly opened. In the palm of his hand was a lotus seal. A forbidden map fell from his palm, covering that part of the world. The 5-colored brilliance was exactly the same as the remnant of the galaxy that Sumo had captured. Nirvana, I've brought the netherworld here. Sumo sighed softly. Looking again, that part of the world instantly changed. The black marsh, the white island, the river of forgetfulness, and so on appeared one by one. It was no longer a simulation of the netherworld, but a rebirth of the former netherworld that Sumo had used a spell. Sizzle. The last 2 seedlings of the red spider lilies broke through the ground. Little 6, little 7, long time no see. Sumo looked at them and smiled with relief. Chapter 648. The ancient lotus bloomed and the other shore broke through the soil. Sumo was very satisfied with everything in the soul-storing altar cave abode. Sumo, how did you offend Izong's demon race? Seeing that Sumo had left the flower garden, Yi Wuhui asked about Nine-Tailed Raccoon. Hee. Sumo sneered, I don't know. However, to Izong, the cultivators of the 3 realms galaxy are all different species. I caused such a big commotion in Dust Luo world. It would be strange if the Almighty of Izong world didn't have any reaction. Izong's demon race is basically in Hanya world. They won't easily come to Dust Luo world. Yi Wuhui frowned. There must be an Almighty behind Nine-Tailed Raccoon. A rebirth level cat demon. Sumo nodded. Behind it, there must be a venerable level figure, right? Grandmaster once said that there are 3 demon kings in Izong world. Yi Wuhui said. What about the 3 demon kings? Sumo asked. I only know that one of them is Peacock. I don't know about the other 2. Yi Wuhui said, however, according to Grandmaster, the 3 demon kings are indeed venerable level figures. Any one of them is comparable to the previous demon kings of the 3 realms. Comparable to Shuang? Sumo heard this and frowned. That kind of existence was indeed something that she couldn't face head-on. Sumo, what are you going to do next? The Pure Land is stable. I want to go to Dust Luo 3 stars. Sumo said. Dead Soul Star Domains Dust Luo 3 stars. Yi Wuhui frowned. She remembered the star map in the cave. Why are you going to Dust Luo 3 stars? Yi Wuhui asked again. To find someone. Sumo said. To find Wu Heir or Senior Mu. Yi Wuhui couldn't help but smile. Sumo was stunned. How did you know? Ha ha. Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo and laughed. These days, you have been unconscious and have been talking nonsense. During this period of time, other than calling AMU twice, the one you kept calling was either Wu or Senior Marshal Sister Mu. He. I see. Sumo couldn't help but smile. Of course he remembered his own dream. Thank you for guarding me these days, Sumo said. There's nothing wrong with guarding them. The point is, I can't help you with anything. Yi Wuhui sighed.
Sumo, they are very important to you, right?
Yes. It's very important. Sumo nodded. 2 women? Yi Wuhui pursed his lips and smiled. No. Sumo shook her head. Yi Wuhui couldn't help but be stunned. Wu and Senior Marshal Sister Mu are the same person. Sumo smiled bitterly. She is my wife. Wu is the name of the 3 realms of Star River, and Senior Marshal Sister Mu is the reincarnated body. Wife. Yi Wuhui's eyes dimmed imperceptibly, but he immediately smiled and said, Wu is the plum blossom fairy of the Heaven Continent's Mu clan? Yes. Sumo thought of Wu and couldn't help but smile. The love of the devil and demon. Yi Wuhui sighed. I heard some of the past events of the 3 realms from the Grand Master. The plum blossom fairy died twice in the 3 realms for you. Yes. Sumo nodded. Amu broke the cause and effect of the 3 realms. We were reborn in the Star River. However, the Star River was broken, and we were reincarnated again. In this life we met, but we missed it. Sumo sighed and didn't say much about the past of 5 Wheels. However, I will definitely find her, Sumo said firmly. Yi Wuhui looked at Sumo and smiled. You will definitely find her. Thank you. Sumo smiled. Sumo, can I make a request? Yi Wuhui pondered for a moment. What request? Sumo said. Take me to the 3 stars of Chenluo? No. Sumo refused. In the Yizong world, I may not be able to protect you. Now, the Almighty of the Yizong world has noticed me, so it's very dangerous to be with me. Hee. Yi Wuhui smiled helplessly. Sumo, let me ask you, if you die, who will save me? Huh. Sumo frowned. Sumo, this immortal's cave is like a cage. Actually, you should understand. In this battle of Tianfu, if you fall and can't come back, I'm afraid I won't be able to leave this immortal's cave for the rest of my life. Without you, this immortal bathing ancient lotus will definitely wither and die. I'm just a soul, living here is worse than death. Isn't that right? Yi Wuhui smiled reluctantly. If something happens to me, Humph will come back to lead you out. It knows the way back. Or, I can teach you the method to get out now. Sumo said. Yi Wuhui shook his head. Sumo, I don't want to wait for the little white pig, and I won't learn your method. If you don't agree, you can send me out now. Miss Yi Sumo. Yi Wuhui interrupted Sumo. It's a torture for me to be alone in this immortal's cave. I'll worry if you'll be in danger and if you'll come back. In here, I have no heart to cultivate. It won't do me any good. Sumo frowned. Bring me to the Dead Souls Star region. I can be your help and help you find Wu. Yi Wuhui said, I'm more familiar with everything in the Dead Souls Star region than you. My understanding of Yizong is better than yours. I won't drag you down. I just don't want to be alone here. I want to help you more. Sumo remained silent. You can put me in your storage bag, Yi Wuhui said. I'll sleep there. It's better than waiting here. Sumo, I don't want to wait in this empty immortal's cave. Sumo frowned again and looked at Yi Wuhui. This god doll was indeed a pitiful woman. Sumo. Yi Wuhui's eyes glistened with tears. However, she wouldn't cry. Okay. Sumo thought for a long time and finally smiled. She nodded and said, But what? Yi Wuhui asked anxiously. But no matter what happens to me, you can't show yourself, Sumo said. Miss Yi, you should understand that if your soul disappears, no one can save you. Okay. Yi Wuhui nodded. I won't put you in my cosmos bag, Sumo said. Then why do you want to bring me along? Yi Wuhui was confused. I'll put you in my sea of consciousness, Sumo said, because it's safer that way. As long as I'm alive, you won't have to worry. Because you're right, if something happens to me, I'm afraid no one will save you. Plus, you might be able to be my guide. Yes, definitely. Yi Wuhui was overjoyed. In Sumo's sea of consciousness, she could communicate with Sumo at any time. I'll help you find Wu-er. Yi Wuhui smiled. I'll help you rebuild your body, Sumo said with a smile. Whoosh, humph, at that moment the little white pig's voice came from the cave. Looking again, the two figures instantly arrived at the Flower Valley. The little white pig rode the black-winged deity Hong into the cave. Clang, humph, the two divine beasts screamed with joy when they saw Sumo. Sumo said that she would be back soon. However, they waited in the northern Chill City for a month and didn't see Sumo return. The entire Dongi planet was safe under Bu Shinkong's arrangements, but Sumo didn't come back. Everyone was anxious. In the end, the little white pig wanted to return to the soul storage altar. The black-winged deity Hong wanted to come with her. The little white pig's condition was to let the black-winged deity Hong be her mount once. That was how the scene just now came about. They were happy to see that Sumo was safe and sound. The black-winged deity Hong swung his body. Bang! The little white pig was thrown into a corner of the Flower Valley. Humph! However, the little white pig didn't dare to say anything. Sumo, on the other hand, smiled. With a wave of his hand, he plucked many immortal fruits for the two divine beasts. Then, she waved her hand and put them back into the universe bag. Miss Yi, let's go. Okay. Yi Wuhui nodded. Then, with a slight movement of his body, he turned into a blue light and flew into Sumo's sea of consciousness again. Sumo. Yi Wuhui called. HM? Sumo responded. I heard that the Holy Father Amu always has a black bird on his shoulder, right? Yes. There's a black bird called Crow. In its previous life, it was a white canary. When the AMU left the Three Realms, he brought Shun Yen and the blackbird with him. Sumo, I'm willing to be a blackbird too. Yi Wuhui's voice came from her sea of consciousness. Huh. Sumo couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. He shook his head and sighed, but didn't say anything. Then, he stepped out of the soul storage altar. Chapter 649. Dongi was silent, and the Pure Land was peaceful. Although Sumo had disappeared for a month, the submission of the corpse-less sect was carried out step by step, and it was extremely smooth. 3,000 puppet kings of the Dongi corpse-less sect gathered in the Pure Land. They were all puppets of cultivators. In Dongi Galaxy, the highest commander of the corpse-less sect, Bu Shinkong's order was immediately executed. The Dongi corpse-less sect submitted to the Pure Land. The power of the Three Realms Galaxy had taken complete control of Dongi Galaxy. During this time, two extremely important figures appeared in the northern Chill City. The first one was Han Bingi, the lord of the northern Chill City. That day, Han Bingi had something in her heart, so she went back to the northern Cold City. By the time she returned, the smoke had already dispersed, and the Pure Land world had already changed. Fortunately, the northern Chill City did not suffer any damage, and Miao Long Air was safe and sound. Han Bingi felt relieved. The second person was the silver-haired Xing Fei. Actually, Han Bingi's return wasn't particularly surprising. However, the appearance of silver-haired Xing Fei was something that no one had expected. The vast sea-white light. His appearance was truly like a ray of light. Moreover, Xing Fei was unscathed. What he did in the past, he would do now. He still had the ability to kill venerables. At the same time, Xing Fei did not expect that there would be so many samsara travelers of the Three Realms in the dust world. It must be known that he was like Han Bingi in the vast hidden world, searching for tens of thousands of years, but to no avail. When talking about the past, the cultivators of the Three Realms couldn't help but sigh. Yuwuji naturally asked Xing Fei about Azure Demon. Unfortunately, Xing Fei had been looking for Azure Demon as well. Yuwuji was very disappointed, but since the white light was there, the green light was definitely there as well. This was good news for Yuwuji. As long as they were alive, they would meet again. Outside Beihan City, the power of the Three Realms galaxy continued to radiate and merge. However, the speed of the radiation was already very slow and weak. There were more than 3,000 small worlds in East E Galaxy. At this moment, standing in the sky above the Pure Land, if you were a peerless almighty, you would be able to see countless brilliant stars as far as the eye could see. Xing Fei stood alone in the void. His silver hair fluttered in the wind. His white robe fluttered gently. Azure sea white light. His eyes were incomparably deep. His eyes were filled with stars. At that moment, he exuded an aura of transcendence. Just like Qing Mozi in the past, no matter where they stood, that part of the world seemed to belong to them. The ancient vast sea current did not lose its original color even when it was in the hidden realm. No one knew what was on Xing Fei's mind. He just stood there quietly. This place is already very much like the Milky Way. At this moment, a gray-robed man silently appeared beside him. It was none other than Bu Xingkong. He. Xing Fei nodded. He was not surprised by Bu Xingkong's appearance. That's right. Actually, if it weren't for you, I might have been able to see further. This East E star region can be considered a galaxy in the past. Bu Xingkong nodded. Of course, he could tell that Xing Fei's words had a double meaning. Indeed, they saw further. Therefore, this was not the Milky Way. Right now, East E star region was still a bullet, and a fragile one at that. Compared to the One Treasury, East E was very, very small and very fragile. Although the power of the Three Realms and the Milky Way was awakening, it was far from enough. It should be noted that the Milky Way was once prosperous and had countless powerful cultivators. However, there was no AMU. However, they were crushed by the One Treasury and could not fight back at all. It hurts to see further, doesn't it? Bu Xingkong smiled faintly. Of course. Xing Fei nodded. Therefore, the gods and Buddhas are all merciful. Because they can see pain and suffering that ordinary people cannot, and they know life and death better. Xing Fei, is reincarnation bitter? Bu Xingkong asked. No. Xing Fei smiled. Or at least, it is not bitter for me. Because when I was in the Three Realms, I was a reincarnator. To me, reincarnation is a normal state. To me, every reincarnation is like day and night, the sun rises and the moon sets for the mortals. From the Three Realms to the Milky Way, and from the Milky Way to the One Treasury, I only see it as the 4 seasons. I enjoy every reincarnation, and then forget every reincarnation. I am a ray of white light. However, what? However, I prefer the Three Realms and the Milky Way. Hearing Xing Fei's words, Bu Xingkong did not speak for a while. You are indeed the light of the ocean. Bu Xingkong let out a long sigh. Your state of mind is something that the other cultivators of the Three Realms cannot hope to achieve. Will Azure Demon be the same as you? Therefore, I awakened the fastest. Xing Fei smiled and shook his head. However, Azure Demon may not be as good as me in this regard. Oh! Bu Xingkong was stunned. Why? Because I have nothing to worry about. He, on the other hand, has fetters. Xing Fei smiled. You Qiumu? Bu Xingkong asked. Yes. Xing Fei nodded. Azure Demon must still be struggling in reincarnation. Reincarnation is not easy, and awakening is even more difficult. Bu Xingkong's face was hidden under the hood. At this moment, he could not help but raise his head slightly and look at the distant stars. Then, he nodded. That's right. Reincarnation is not easy, and awakening is even more difficult. In fact, I almost did not wake up. If that was the case, I would still be a god puppet. In fact, I would never know who I am. Bu Xingkong said. The ancestral master would never have thought that my soul would awaken in the body of a god puppet. He. Xing Fei shook his head. Perhaps Bu Miaotian has already predicted everything.
Can you guess the thoughts of the Three Realms ghost prodigy?
No. Bu Xingkong shook his head with certainty. That's right, Xing Fei said. In fact, it is difficult to guess the thoughts of any person. Moreover, they are all supremacies. Bu Miaotian has created so many puppets. Who would know his true intentions? Could it be that he really wants to create a puppet world? I don't believe it.
Do you really not know where Bu Miaotian went?
I really don't know, Bu Xingkong said. However, I know that the corpseless sect in Dongi Galaxy is only a part of the corpseless sect. Its true power has already spread throughout the first treasury. There are still powerful cultivators above the ancestral master. Back then, he left because he was summoned, and then he never returned. But he is still alive. As long as he is alive. Xing Fei nodded. Bu Miaotian should know more secrets about the first treasury. What do you plan to do next? Bu Xingkong asked. When Xiao Luo returns, I will go to the Glaze realm. Xing Fei said.
To save AMU?
Bu Xingkong asked. I can't save him. Xing Fei smiled bitterly. But I have to find him. That is why I reincarnated. I am a ray of light in the ocean. What about you? Xing Fei asked. Other than me, I am afraid that no one can control the billions of puppets in Dongi Galaxy. Unless the ancestral master comes, no one can beat me in the art of puppets, Bu Xingkong said. Then I will stay here for the Three Realms. Even if Sumo returns, she will definitely leave. Most of the reincarnators in the northern Chill City will leave once they recover their true powers. As long as I am here, the galaxy will have a home. None of you are rootless duckweed. Xing Fei was stunned when he heard that. Then, he bowed deeply to Bu Xingkong. Xing Fei, for the Three Realms and the galaxy, thank you, perfected one. Oh! Bu Xingkong smiled.
You know who I am?
Of course. Xing Fei smiled. Don't forget, you and I are both souls in the heavenly coffin. Sumo must know who you are. Otherwise, why would he leave with peace of mind when he found the remnant of the galaxy? The entire Dongi Galaxy is in your hands.
Oh?
Haha. In the void of the Pure Land, Bu Xingkong and Xing Fei laughed. Chapter 650. A Dark Hall in Northern Chill City. The Dark Hall was located in the center of Northern Chill City. It was an underground cave. It was surrounded by 100-year-old mystic ice. It was the core of the entire Northern Chill City, where Hanbingi used to cultivate. Apart from Hanbingi, only Miao Longer could enter the Dark Hall. Although this was the Dark Hall, there was a huge ice screen hanging on the walls of this hall. The entire Northern Chill City could be seen from the ice screen, and even everything outside the city could be seen. The ice screen was displaying a dazzling starry sky. The view was very similar to Xing Fei and Bu Xingkong's. Hanbingi stood with her hands behind her back and looked at the ice screen. She was wearing a purple robe and her appearance hadn't changed. If AMU were standing in front of her right now, he would definitely smile warmly. Hanbingi's expression didn't change at all. Her face was still as beautiful as ever. However, her watery eyes were clearer and colder, like ice that had been frozen for thousands of years. The former top beauty of the Northern Chill sect had gone through a lot, but the only thing that had changed was her mind. Heartless Tao. Hanbingi's Tao was heartless purple. That was the Tao she had learned the last time she left AMU. Her Tao heart had been as cold as ice and indestructible for tens of thousands of years. At this moment, Hanbingi was looking at the spacetime outside Northern Chill City that was as bright as a galaxy, but her eyes were calm. Master! Suddenly, Miao Longer walked into the hall. She was wearing a white robe and didn't act reserved in front of Hanbingi. Instead, she looked more lively and natural. She was like a mortal who only acted like a child in front of her parents. Longer, you're here. There was a rare flash of tenderness in Han Bingyi's cold eyes. Apart from Miao Longer, no cultivator in northern Chill City had ever seen that look in her eyes. Master, the current East Star area really looks like a galaxy. Miao Longer glanced at the ice curtain and let out a sigh. She felt the same way as Bu Miaotian. The galaxy was bright because there were cultivators in the three realms. Yes. Han Bingyi nodded. Indeed. But it only looks like a galaxy, not a galaxy. Actually, it's good that they look alike. Miao Longer smiled and said, if it wasn't for Sumo, then we wouldn't have been able to see this starry sky. The galaxy is so beautiful. Han Bingyi's face was expressionless as she sneered. The Milky Way originated from AMU. When Miao Longer heard this, he could not help but secretly stick out his tongue. She knew she had said the wrong thing. Han Bingyi didn't like people praising Sumo, because in her heart the greatest man was called AMU. Sumo, on the other hand, was defeated by AMU. Master, will you stay for a few more days this time? Miao Longer went over and pulled Han Bingyi's arm coquettishly. Longer, I miss you very much. Please accompany me more often. You still remember to miss Master? Don't you have someone to keep you company? Han Bingyi said, aren't you and that little fatty getting along well? Yes. Miao Longer was not shy but admitted it generously. Even now, I still feel like beating him up. Moreover, with his qualifications, he will never be able to beat me up in this lifetime. That's good. Han Bingyi actually nodded. Longer, you don't have to worry about anything. If he dares to touch a single hair of yours, I will kill him. Miao Longer said in a panic, Master, I can do it myself. You don't have to worry about such a small matter. Han Bingyi stared at Miao Longer. How could Han Bingyi not understand what she was thinking? Miao Longer was reluctant to part with that little fatty. Most of the time, Han Bingyi did not understand what was so good about that little fatty. However, her precious disciple liked him, so what could she do? At the same time, thinking about herself, Han Bingyi understood everything. She had cultivated the Tao of Heartless for thousands of years. However, she could not even withstand a single blow from that person, let alone her own disciple? Who could say for sure about these things? Master, do you really have to go to the Glaze world? At this moment, Miao Longer said seriously. I must go. Han Bingyi said. Miao Longer looked at the countless stars on the ice screen and smiled. She knew her master too well, because for thousands of years, they had depended on each other for survival. Therefore, she would not dissuade her master. Master, you will definitely find the Holy Father AMU. Miao Longer said with a smile. Han Bingyi chuckled. Her smile was filled with self-mockery. Longer, what do you think will happen after I find him? I am only his senior sister. Actually, I have always been. What can I do? Do what? Miao Longer was slightly stunned. Actually, she should be the one asking her master this question. However, at that moment, she understood that her master did not have the answer. Master, actually, you don't have to do anything. It's good that you have found him, Miao Longer said with a smile. Han Bingyi looked at Miao Longer and her eyes were slightly warm. All right? Then listen to Longer. It's good that you have found him. Perhaps I just want to see if he is all right. Yes. Miao Longer nodded. The master and disciple looked at the stars on the ice screen and did not speak for a long time. It was as if they could find what they wanted in that vast space-time. Longer, I will leave the northern Chill City to you. No matter what, Sumo has captured the remnant of the Milky Way. Although this is not the Milky Way, the cultivators of the three realms still have a place to stay. This way, I can rest assured. Han Bingyi said again, the northern Chill City will no longer be lonely. Master, how is the Li Uncle Master? Miao Longer asked. The situation in the Li dynasty is very complicated. Han Bingyi sighed. He still cannot control everything. All these years, he has been trying his best. He will definitely go back to find the AMU. However, now is not the time. The AMU is above the venerable realm. How can the person who sealed him be ordinary? Han Bingyi smiled bitterly. But I think that the cultivators of the three realms and Li Shui will save him even if they all die in battle. In the vast Yizong, the venerables of the three realms have not appeared. The war between the three realms and Yizong has just begun. There is no retreat for the three realms. The only way is to fight. Miao Long-er listened and nodded heavily. Master, when will you leave? When Sumo returns, I will go to the Glaze realm with Xing Fei. Han Bingyi looked at the vast Milky Way, her eyes cold again. This time, if I do not find the MU, I will not come back. Master! Miao Long-er called out, wanting to say something but hesitating. Long-er! Han Bingyi turned around and hugged Miao Long-er gently. She said softly, you know. Master has cultivated for tens of thousands of years, just for him. Master, I understand. Miao Long-er hugged Han Bingyi and sobbed softly. Her tears fell on Han Bingyi's shoulder. At that moment, a figure in white stepped out and landed outside the northern Chill City. End of volume. Chapter 651. Dongi Starfield was renamed Pure Land Starfield. The former Pure Land world had turned into a Pure Land continent. The original Pure Land world no longer existed. It had been completely reorganized. Sumo's return cheered the cultivators. In the end, they decided to divide the Pure Land Starfield into the original three Starfield. However, the Pure Land continent was the absolute center of the Pure Land Starfield. Bushinkong guarded the Pure Land continent. The northern Chill City floated above the Pure Land continent. The other reincarnation state cultivators of the three realms were temporarily cultivating in the northern Chill City. On the day of the battle with Tianfu, they were all guided by Sumo's power. However, they still needed time to fully recover their powers. So, they chose to go into seclusion. It might take hundreds or even thousands of years. However, everything was just around the corner. As long as they came out of seclusion, each of them would at least be a reincarnation state cultivator, or even a peak reincarnation state cultivator. The Pure Land Starfield was the cradle of the three realms revival. It might be a small and fragile cradle. However, they all believed that a single spark could start a prairie fire. Now that the Pure Land was at peace, those top figures were about to leave. At night, 4 cultivators sat in a courtyard in the northern Chill City. They were Sumo, Xing Fei, Han Bingyi, and Bu Shinkong. The other reincarnation cultivators of the three realms weren't here because they were in seclusion. Apart from them, only Miao Long-er was standing behind Han Bingyi obediently. It was already good enough that she could stand next to the 4 grand cultivators. Miao Long-er couldn't be compared to them, be it in their past lives or this life. The 4 cultivators sat around a table. There was deity wine and spiritual food on the table. However, none of them ate or drank anything. Everything in the Pure Land Starfield had been arranged properly. This was their last meeting. Everyone, I will go to the Glaze world after I find Wu-er, Sumo said. Okay. Xing Fei nodded. Demon King, if you need me, I can go with you to the Dead Soul Starfield and help you. No need. Sumo shook her head. I only have some clues about Wu-er. The specific situation was still unknown. I don't know what will happen if I go looking for it. No matter how many people there are, it's futile. It's a good idea for us to split up. AMU is actually more important to us. Sumo sighed. It would be best if you could find AMU's whereabouts. So, I can go to the Dead Souls Starfield alone. Xing Fei nodded after hearing what Sumo said. Demon King, wait for the others to come out of seclusion. We will assist you according to the situation. In the Yizong world, There are actually many samsara travelers of the 3 realms that we have yet to meet. I hope that you will be able to meet them. And Sumo nodded. Perfected One, we're leaving. The Pure Land starfield will have to trouble you. Bushinkong laughed. Demon King, don't worry. That is our responsibility, so why bother? As long as I am here, the Pure Land will be here. Sumo shook her head and said, Perfected One, don't fight to the death if there is a problem that you can't solve. I left Northern Chill City in the Pure Land starfield just in case. We don't even need the Pure Land starfield at a critical moment. The cultivators of the 3 realms galaxy are our hope. As long as we are here, everything will be here. I understand. Bushinkong nodded solemnly. Hanbingi didn't say anything. She just listened quietly. She didn't really care about it. There were people who would do it. She just wanted to find AMU. When I'm not here, listen to the Perfected One's arrangements. Hanbingi said. Yes, Master. Miao Long answered obediently. Also, from now on, you are the city lord of Northern Chill City. You must cultivate well. Hanbingi said. Master. Miao Long's body shook. Even though they had talked before, Hanbingi didn't say that she would be the city lord. It seemed that Hanbingi had already prepared for the worst. Governor Han. Suemo couldn't help but frown. Xing Fei and Bu Shinkong also looked at Hanbingi. They had heard about Hanbingi and Amu's past. They also knew about Hanbingi's personality. Everyone, there is no need to say more. Hanbingi's beautiful face didn't change at all. Northern Chill City was built for the 3 realms. These are just worldly possessions to me. Hanbingi then took out a badge and handed it to Miao Long. It was the badge of the city lord of Northern Chill City. Everything that belongs to Master is yours. Hanbingi smiled at Miao Long. Master. Hearing this, Miao Long didn't say anything else. He immediately knelt down on both knees and received the Beihan token with both hands. Long I await the good news and Master's return. Take care, Long Hanbingi patted Miao Long's head and stood up. She didn't want to wait any longer. Seeing this, Xing Fei also stood up. Don't worry, lady. Xing Fei smiled at Miao Long. Our Blue Sea lineage will never fail, no matter when or where. One day, you will see your master and Uncle Master come back. Thank you, Senior. Miao Long stood up and bowed to Xing Fei. Demon King, perfected cultivator, take care. Xing Fei cupped his fists at Sumo and Bu Shinkong. Hanbingi didn't say anything, but she also cupped her fist. Take care, you too. Suemo and Bu Shinkong stood up. Then, Xing Fei and Hanbingi moved and disappeared from where they stood. Master, Miao Long murmured. Tears rolled down from his eyes. Lady, I have to go too. Sumo smiled at Miao Long. Please send my regards to Guan Xiong. Sumo, be careful too. Miao Long said. Don't worry. Sumo turned around and cupped her fists at Bu Shinkong. Perfected cultivator, we will meet again. Demon King, take care. Bu Shinkong said. Sumo smiled and nodded. Then, she took a step forward and disappeared into the night. Miao Long and Bu Shinkong stood in the courtyard. They looked up and saw the vast starry sky. They felt that the sky was high and there were many stars, but it was empty and lonely. A cultivator in white appeared and disappeared in the starry sky. Every step he took seemed to be a small world. That cultivator was Sumo. Time and space reincarnation. Sumo had already figured out the essence of that magical step. Therefore, he could move freely and create a world with every step he took. He had a star map in his mind. He went straight to the Dead Soul Star area in the north of Chunluo. A conversation was heard in his sea of consciousness. Sumo, why do you call my eldest senior brother perfected cultivator? Because he is a perfected cultivator, Sumo said with a smile. What perfected cultivator? Why don't I know about him? perfected cultivator Qianzong. He is also a samsara traveler of the three realms. Sumo answered. The heaven continent's Qing family is invincible in puppet. Qing Qianzong, perfected Qianzong, used to be one of the heavenly souls. The Qing family? Yi Wuhui was puzzled. But I have never heard of this family. Oh! Sumo was a little surprised. The heaven continent's Qing family was not in Yi Wuhui's memory. Chapter 652. The Qing family used to be one of the most powerful families in the heaven continent of the three realms. The puppets of the Qing family were invincible in the three realms. The cultivators of the Qing family were even more powerful. One of them could slaughter an entire city. The Qing family and the Yi family had a deep relationship. The woman of the Qing family was the daughter-in-law of the Yi family. The ancestor of the Qing family and Yi Muyun were fellow disciples. Back then, Bu Miaotian misunderstood them and left without saying goodbye. The ancestor of the Qing family searched for Bu Miaotian but to no avail. From then on, the Qing family would choose a daughter of the Qing family to marry into the Yi family and protect the Yi family. Granny Qingye and the puppets of the crow divinity in the Muyun villa were actually from the Qing family. In fact, to some extent, the blood of the Qing family flowed in the Yi family. But Yi Wuhui didn't know about the existence of the Qing family? This was truly unimaginable. Bu Miaotian already knew everything. Whether he regretted it or not, he shouldn't hate the Qing family anymore. The puppetry technique of the Qing family was actually taught by Bu Miaotian, the genius of the three realms. Their techniques came from the same source. Sumo really didn't understand why Bu Miaotian didn't give Yi Wuhui a puppet of the Qing family's memories. Ha ha! But Sumo didn't ask Yi Wuhui. Instead, she smiled and said, "It seems that you don't know much about the three realms. Sumo, you can tell me about it." Yi Wuhui sounded happy. She liked being able to talk to Sumo at any time. Okay. Sumo smiled. So, Sumo briefly told him about Qing Qianzong, as well as some past events of the three realms and the universe. There were some things in Yi Wuhui's memories, or he had heard about them from Bu Miaotian, but there were some things that she really didn't know. It took a long time to travel between the stars, even if it was a space jump. Besides, Sumo didn't want to use spacetime spells all the time, because it would be very costly. Therefore, Sumo didn't travel very fast. The two chatted along the way, which relieved a lot of the loneliness. Time flew like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. On this day, Sumo had arrived at the edge of the Dead Soul Star region. The former East Second Star area, or the current Pure Land Star area, was separated from the Dead Soul Star area by a million-mile-wide broken star zone. It was as if many stars were being destroyed. The fragmentary star domain was filled with all kinds of floating continents, floating rocks, and unknown dust. However, there shouldn't be any life forms in between. Dressed in white, Sumo stopped at the periphery of the scattered stars zone. From Sumo's point of view, the fragmentary star zone was dark gray and misty. Even if Sumo used her magic eye, she couldn't see everything clearly. An indescribable aura spread out from within the mist. It was like the aura of death, but it didn't seem like the aura of death at the same time. However, it made people's hearts tighten slightly. Phew, Sumo exhaled heavily. The broken stars zone was like a dark gray desert in the mortal world. However, this desert was not flat, but three-dimensional. It blotted out the sky and the sun. Through this place we'll reach the Dead Soul Star region. Yi Wuhui's voice sounded. I came here with the ancestral master. He said that tens of thousands of years ago, there was a great battle at the Samsara realm. About 7 or 8 small worlds were destroyed in the Great Array. The scattered stars zone is only a part of them. The others are completely gone. Ha ha! Sumo sighed. In the vast universe, the truth is that even cultivators are ants. That's right. Yi Wuhui said, Back then, the ancestral master said something similar. However, he also said something else. What? Even ants want to live. Haha. Sumo couldn't help but laugh. If someone else said this, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, it's interesting when it comes from the mouth of the ghost genius of the three realms. Don't puppets want to live? The ancestral master said that real puppets don't fear death. If they fear death, then they're no longer puppets. Yi Wuhui said. But I don't think those cultivator puppets will easily die. Not easily dying doesn't mean that they fear death. Yi Wuhui said. Any puppet will instantly forget about life and death when it receives an order from its master. They won't stop until they reach their goal unless they die. So, the ghost genius of the three realms likes puppets? Sumo didn't think much of it. Those puppets are his tools. Maybe. Yi Wuhui sighed. Actually, no one can understand the ancestral master's world. During the years I followed him, he would often stare at the empty space alone. I don't know what he was thinking about. Does the three realms really not regret it? Sumo asked. I don't know. Yi Wuhui said. He never mentioned what happened to the Yi family in the past. However, he did give me and my sister the name Wuhui. Only he knows whether he regrets it or not. But, so what if he regrets it? Yi Wuhui smiled bitterly. Although the ancestral master's puppetry skills are unparalleled, he can't bring ancestral master Muyun back to life. Yi Muyun back to life? Sumo's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. This was because she had never thought about this before. However, Yi Muyun had been dead for tens of thousands of years. Even when Amu shattered the karma and reorganized the three realms, such a person couldn't be resurrected. Therefore, it was impossible for Yi Muyun to be resurrected. If Bu Miaotian insisted on this, it would be a path that she would never be able to walk. Sumo sighed. The ghost genius of the three realms became a venerable long ago. Of course. When he left the three realms, he was already a venerable. Yi Wuhui smiled bitterly. In other words, when he destroyed the Yi family, he became a venerable. Ha ha! Sumo shook her head but didn't say anything. Sometimes, many things really couldn't be explained. Back then, for the ghost genius of the three realms, becoming a venerable was his obsession for tens of thousands of years, but he never succeeded. However, when his hands were stained with the blood of his descendants, he became a venerable. Sumo didn't believe that Bu Miaotian would be indifferent when he knew that all the people he killed were of his bloodline. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken Bu Wuhui away. This path to becoming a venerable was simply a great tragedy and irony. Whether it was worth it or not, perhaps even Bu Miaotian himself couldn't tell. Becoming a venerable with a single thought, all the ages were nothing. For a long time, Sumo and Yi Wuhui didn't say anything. Sumo, dressed in white, stood outside the shattered stars zone. He looked at the dark gray world and narrowed his eyes, as if he had discovered something. Unfortunately, Yi Wuhui couldn't see Sumo's expression. When was the corpse-less sect founded in Dongyi? Sumo asked again. I don't remember the details, but it was at least millions of years ago. Yi Wuhui said. Right. It was after the Star River was destroyed. On the day the Star River was completely destroyed, the Patriarch and I were walking among the stars. He sensed it. Oh! Sumo couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. That day, he told me that the Star River was gone. Then, he remained silent for 3 days and 3 nights. Later, the corpse-less sect gradually came into existence in Dongyi planet region, and the Patriarch created more and more puppets. After that, many puppets could be made into puppets. The corpse-less sect became a giant. But the Patriarch is gone. Yi Wuhui sighed. Sumo nodded. However, his eyes were still on the shattered stars zone. His pupils suddenly shrank. Then, Sumo's body moved. She turned into a beam of white light and went straight into the shattered stars zone. Because he saw a red-clothed figure. There seemed to be thousands of red sand behind her. Chapter 653. Whoosh! Sumo stepped into the fragmentary stars zone. In an instant, the sky was covered by black sand. At this moment, Sumo was surrounded by a faint white light. None of the black sand could come within 10 meters of her. "What's wrong, Sumo?" Yiwuhue asked. Just now, he sensed that Sumo's divine soul was shaken, and Sumo's movement was very sudden. It was an instinctive reaction. Sumo must have seen something. "Just now I saw a red shadow enter this area. Behind her, there seems to be endless red sand." Suemo frowned. At the same time, he opened his magic eye. Black light kept flashing in Sumo's eyes. However, apart from the floating land, there were only flowing stones and endless black sand in the fragmentary stars zone. The red shadow just now could not be seen at all. "What? Like your senior sister Mu?" Yiwuhue smiled. "Yes." Sumo nodded. However, when he spread out his divine sense and scanned his surroundings at the same time, there was no red shadow or red sand. "The dead soul star area is a dead star area." Yiwuhue smiled. "The Patriarch said that there is absolutely no life in the fragmentary stars zone. Maybe you're wrong." Sumo smiled bitterly. "Maybe. But I want to take a walk in the fragmentary stars zone." In fact, Sumo believed that he was right. He was a grand cultivator in the 5th level of the reincarnation realm. With his soul consciousness, he could sense tens of thousands of miles away, even in the space. It was very unlikely that he was wrong. "Alright." Yiwuhue certainly knew what Sumo was thinking. He said with a smile, "Although there is no life in the fragmentary stars zone, it is said that there are some strange minerals and relics left by the small worlds. Maybe we can find some treasures." "Yes," Sumo answered. Thus, he walked slowly in the scattered stars zone. At the same time, Sumo's soul consciousness followed him and explored the entire scattered stars field. This broken stars zone was somewhat similar to the Azura world of the Devil continent. There were many things on the Void continent. It was just that those continents weren't very big. The largest floating continent was no more than 500 kilometers in circumference, while the smallest was no more than a few kilometers in circumference. This small continent was like a speck of dust in the starry sky. Although Sumo was walking slowly, she was still able to cover 100 miles with each step. Sumo would stop and examine the larger ones. He was sure that he had seen red shadows and red sand just now. Most of the floating continents had been completely weathered away. So much so that Sumo could see that these floating continents were still shattering the wind. Perhaps, after some time, all of these floating continents would be corroded by the power of the astral realm. What could withstand the passing of time? Sumo sighed softly in her heart. After walking through a dozen or so floating continents, Sumo found nothing. The entire scattered stars zone couldn't be described as desolate at all. That was because it was simply dead silent. After all, there was actually a trace of vitality in this desolation. However, there was no vitality here at all. Even Sumo felt a sense of oppression when he was in this place. All traces of life had been completely erased. Through Sumo's soul consciousness, Yiwuhue could also see all of this. He couldn't help but sigh faintly. Everything in this vast universe will eventually return to nothingness. Cultivators were really just ants in this vast universe. Sumo didn't answer because he didn't have an answer either. Whoosh! With one step, Sumo landed on another floating continent. This floating continent wasn't small at all. It was nearly 1,000 kilometers in circumference. On it there was a black mountain peak that stood alone. It seemed to be the last guardian of this floating continent. There was still no trace of life on the entire floating continent. However, Sumo found the remains of an ancient building at the foot of the Black Mountain. Such an existence was extremely rare on the scattered stars zone. With a slight movement, Sumo was already standing at the foot of the Black Mountain. That ancient building seemed to be a palace. This was because there were a few collapsed palace walls that seemed to have been at least a few dozen meters tall. The steps inside were each 3 feet tall, but they were extremely dilapidated. They used to be made of black stones. There was also a stone pillar with a diameter of 3 meters and a length of nearly 100 meters that was broken on the ground. Its surface was riddled with holes. However, it didn't look like the result of weathering. Instead, it looked like it had been destroyed by a spell. There were still many broken walls around, but there were no fluctuations of spiritual power. Sumo really wanted to find some words or runes, but there was nothing here. What is this place? Who left it here? Sumo muttered to himself. He knew nothing about the Scattered Stars Zone. It looks like this is the legendary Demon Moon Realm, Yi Wuhui said. The Demon Moon Realm? Sumo was stunned. The Demon Moon Realm and the Pure Land Realm are both small worlds. Yi Wuhui explained. When I came here with the Patriarch, he mentioned it. However, the cultivators in the Demon Moon Realm were more powerful. It was one of the small worlds that were involved in the interstellar war. I heard that the Demon Moon Realm had real reincarnation realm expert. They used to be the overlords of the Dead Soul Star Field. If they were overlords, how could they be destroyed? Moreover, I've never heard of any stronger existences in the Dead Soul Star Field, Sumo asked. That's hard to say. Yi Wuhui said. After all, it's a legend of the Yizong realm. I guess the Patriarch didn't know much about it. Then who were the two sides in the war? I don't know. Yi Wuhui pondered for a moment. But I heard the Patriarch say that everything seemed to be related to the Yizong Demon Clan? The Yizong Demon Clan. Sumo's interest was piqued. Legend has it that there was a reincarnation of the Demon Moon Realm. However, the powerful figure of the Demon Clan was unwilling to return to the Demon Realm. So, it triggered a great war. The Demon Clan reincarnated. Sumo listened to Yi Wuhui's words while searching at the foot of the Black Mountain. He had an intuition that he would find something here. Yes, the Demon Clan, Yi Wuhui said. It said that the Dead Soul Star Field still had vitality many tens of thousands of years ago. However, the Yizong Demon Clan came from the north and gradually turned this star field into the Dead Soul Star Field. The place where we are now is the southernmost part of the Dead Soul Star Field. After the last battle, the Yizong Demon Clan completely left the dust world. Everything that happened in the past has been annihilated. Oh! Sumo nodded. Then, he stopped in front of a broken high platform. He looked up and saw the dark mountain opposite him. A red light suddenly reflected from the corner of the mountain. Sumo raised his eyebrows and flew up. At the same time, he waved his hand and the reincarnation power spread out. He unfolded his long sleeves and a suction force appeared. Then, Sumo landed on the ground and opened his palm. 7 spots of red sand were reflected in his eyes. There was a faint trace of demon chi in the red sand. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.